Hello and good evening and welcome to the May 14th, 2024 Zoning Board of Appeals regular monthly meeting for the Village of Ossining. It is so good to see everyone tonight, and we are quasi judicial government agency for the zoning board. And right now, I just want to remind you of the rules. Yes, I'm a little bit excited tonight, but y'all will be okay. We are still using the hybrid format. The public will continue to have the opportunity to be on Zoom and hear the meeting live through Zoom and provide comments during the appropriate time. Members of the public, in order to participate via Zoom, please do the following. Raise your hand. Use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen if you would like to comment, or press *9 and the meeting host will see your hand is raised and that you have pressed *9 and will unmute those waiting one at a time so that you can speak. Comments can also be emailed during the public hearing to the Village Planning Department at PLAN@villageofossining.org. The meeting will be recorded and a transcript of the meeting will be available at a later date. There are some ground rules for those sitting in here in order to keep the meeting orderly, and for those on Zoom. When you get up to speak, please speak clearly, state your name and your address. If you are speaking during the public hearing, please limit your comments to the matter at hand. If you need to speak to someone while you're in the audience, we're going to ask that you take it down by the doors. Otherwise, if you go out here, we can hear everything that you say. If any speaker is inappropriate, they will be immediately cut off and access denied. To the board members, I will call on you one at a time to speak to avoid everyone speaking at once. And guess what? We're going to use roll call voting for purposes of board motions, and this is to ensure that we have a clear record. Now, for the benefit of those, we are going to do a roll call to kick things off, and I'm going to leave that up to our assistant land use attorney, Taryn Rainey. Oh, sorry. We're going to leave that up to Maddie Zahat. Sorry, our assistant village manager.
Thank you, Chair. We'll start with Corey Block. Brian Grano.
Here.
Kyle Everizit.
Here.
Olga Montes. Here. And Chair Cheatham.
Here.
Thank you.
Also with us tonight, including Maddie Zahat, is Joseph Agostinelli. Jamie Kane, I believe, is on Zoom.
No Jamie tonight. We have Sam from Nelson Pope 4. He's helping us on that.
Okay, that person. Linda Whitehead is not with us tonight. And Taryn Rainey is with us, our assistant land use attorney. So let's get started. First on our agenda for this evening is the approval of the minutes from the April 9th, 2024 meeting. I was not present at that meeting.
You were not. We had Kyle, Olga, Michael, and Brian. So only Kyle, Olga, and Brian can vote.
So if you have had the opportunity to look at the minutes from that meeting, may I have a motion to approve the minutes from the April 9th?
Motion to approve.
Second, Brian.
If there's no objection, well, I guess there's only 3 of us, so if there's no objection from the 3 of you, then that motion will carry for a unanimous, okay. A unanimous consent. So Olga, Kyle, and Brian. Thank you. Our new business of the board, is somebody here for ZBA 06-2024, 10 Maple Place? Hugo Chin?
Yes.
Step up to the podium.
And Hugo, Gabrielle is your architect as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you say she would be the.
Gabrielle, we're bringing you over. Unmute and turn your camera on, please. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. What do I put in? Can I just put it right up?
I think we have all your stuff on here.
Oh, you
So,
do?
yep. Mhm.
Oh,
Hello.
Hi, Gabrielle.
Good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
So, we have existing structure which was built in 1825. And we are trying to improve the two porches that we have, one in the front and one to the side. And all those items are in non-conforming condition with respect to T-zone. We are required to have 30 in the front yard, and we have 14 and a half. And I'm sorry, we have 15 and a half and need the variance of 14.5. And with respect to the side yards, we have 1 yard only 0.2, therefore we require variance of 7.8. And we have combined yards of required 20, and we have only 7, so we need variance of 13. Now, these are existing condition going back to, I guess, 1825. These are not self-created. This is legal two-family with a legal basement, which we going to be renovating as well. And we would like to, get this variances in order for us to continue with the project.
Are there any questions from the board?
You're Mr. Chen, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No question from the board?
Why are you doing these changes or willing to do these changes?
Oh, well, the main reason is because, like in the front of the house, if you see the house from the front, the left side is kind of dilapidated and it's kind of tilted a little bit, and I would like to fix the house because we brought the house with my wife here present like a little year and a half ago, and we tried to fix it. As you can see, the picture of the back house, we've been changing the siding in the back, and eventually we're gonna change the siding too, and the roof too. But the main thing, like the architect say, is a two-family, and I know we have, there are little kids too, and I don't wanna have any accident. Even myself during the winter, the steps, they're really old and they're slippery. I would like to change them, the new products, they are outside now, AZAC, all the kind of new products to make it, look really nice, the way everybody's doing these times, because most of it, they're all painted, and the painting is peeling off, and then I think it's some lead too, could be because it's pretty old, and then that's why it's one of the main reasons we've been trying to get the project going, and then we've been in the process.
So I understand you have a porch there, it's being replaced, correct?
Yeah, it's a porch already, they're existing,
You're just building one,
we're just
replacing it.
updating, basically repairing, because it's, like one side is, I see it is kind of tilted a little bit, and then we're gonna fix it. The roof is, the shingles, everything needs to be fixed, but.
Right.
So,
But the intention is that they have one there and they're replacing it because it's in bad condition.
right, so they taking down the whole porch and putting up a new one, or taking?
No, we're
down-
not taking down the whole porch. We just taking down the certain structural members that are not solid, and we're replacing them with new ones. So the look of the house will not change, and what you see, that's what we gonna have there with the let's say new joist at the left side, and maybe a new floor joist on the left side. So we're not ripping it out, we just fixing it in a sense.
Are you staying within the same percent they have now?
But if they're not taking down the whole porch and replacing it,
That's not how it's presented as replaced.
right, but that's,
Ah.
but what she's saying, that's not what they're saying, though.
That's not what's on. It says replacing, but it's on the.
Well, there will be certain structural members that will be replaced, and also the stairs in the front will be partially replaced, and that's why we had the discussion with the building department, and we kind of end up saying that we will need the variance.
This one seemed to me like one of the easy ones we've had in the past where for safety reasons or deterioration reasons, they're replacing. Sometimes there's a small change, they're doing brick instead of stone but it's. If the zoning board application is correct, it's keeping the exact same footprint.
Right, but then my question was if they're not taking down the whole porch and only removing
Do we need
section,
to
do
be
we,
here?
did they need to be here?
We wouldn't
that's-
normally
that's-
do that, but that's
See,
not
that's
how
why.
it was presented. It was-
That's why.
it's Presented as a
So do they
replacement.
need to correct the paperwork?
I think we had this conversation, and the discussion was that what was submitted was a replacement. The plans were for replacement, but the architect continues to say repair. But that's not what the thing is proposed as.
So can we consider and vote on tonight what's there? And if it's not needed, then no harm, no foul?
That's how I would recommend proceeding. Just proceed on the
That makes sense.
application as presented.
So may I have a motion to open the public hearing on this application?
So moved, Kyle.
Second, Brian.
Is there anyone in the audience to speak on it? Is there anyone on Zoom to speak on it? May I entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
Second, Brian.
So moved, Olga.
I didn't get to.
It was moved and seconded. The public hearing
I don't know
is
who I
now
am.
closed. Let us go through the area variance factors.
Alright. So as the board knows, in determining whether to grant the applicant's request for the area variances, the board must consider the benefit to the applicant with any detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the community. The board must also consider 5 additional factors. The first factor is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variances.
Just to start, as one of the oldest houses, I would imagine in the village, you're doing something that's going to help the neighborhood character and help the house and the safety of the tenants and yourselves, so I don't think so.
I agree. It's aesthetics and safety on the exact same footprint as it currently exists.
I don't think they have much, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
A lot of the houses adjacent to it have this similar setbacks as well, so.
Yeah, these lot sizes are,
It's tiny, they're small, and there's not really much room to move, anything bigger, so.
Agreed.
The next factor is whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variances.
no, the setbacks go into the stairs and you can't not have stairs.
And also, this is the entrance and exit of the household, so something needs to be there.
Fire escape,
Jensen, okay.
ingress and egress.
Yeah, it's an existing, non-conforming structure. It should be allowed to be repaired and replaced. as needed.
The next factor is whether the requested area variances are substantial.
So,
This
this is my favorite.
This is where I get foggy because if we're staying in the same footprint.
I'm gonna say they, with respect to the front yard, it's numerically significant, but it's not. Doesn't create an adverse impact. Oh, same thing for the
The
side
side
yard.
yards.
The next factor for the board to consider is whether the proposed variances will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood.
It can only improve it.
So no.
But it's actually in the same exact footprint of what is already there, so it's really not changing anything in the neighborhood or the look of it.
Okay. And the final factor is whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the board, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. variances, excuse me.
One of our rare no's. It's existing non-conforming, occupying the same footprint, and it's on a lot where almost all of those homes have side yard setback issues.
It's not self-created, they're new homeowners and they're doing the right thing for the house and the community.
As somebody who's very familiar with this property for quite a few years, the house has slowly gone in disrepair over the last 10 years or so. So, no, it was not self-created.
So with that in mind, and after hearing, the board speak, may I have a motion to, accept, ZBA 06-2024, approve ZBA 06-2024 as noted with the following variances: 14.5 for the front yard, 7.8 for one side yard, and 13 feet for both side yards.
So move Brian.
Second, Kyle.
Okay, roll call. Michael Small,
Yes.
Brian Grano,
Yes.
Kyle Aberezek,
Yes.
Olga Montes,
Hi.
and Chair Cheatham.
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, do I even get to,
No.
Do I- no, but do I get to comment during it? Or should I-
Yeah.
Okay.
You can ask questions.
She's actually experienced language person.
I know.
I'll be absent next month.
Next on our
Oh,
agenda.
What?
Okay.
Approved, but. Wait.
Let's remind what our next step
Oh,
is.
sorry. It has been approved, next steps, and this goes to both of you. Please do not take a hammer or nail until you get the permits and the and the approval from the signed approval from the building department.
Thank you.
Okay, if you start before, they're gonna make you rip it out.
No, we've been waiting for it, it's not gonna kill it too well, a little bit more.
It should not, it's about a month-ish, kind of sort of maybe.
We just have to wait for the signed resolution from the board at tonight's meeting.
At the next meeting.
Couple weeks.
Couple weeks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Best of luck
Good
with your
night.
charming home.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, ZBA 08-2024, 133 State Street, Jesus Mejia. And I'm hoping I said that right.
You pronounce it here, right? Yes.
Oh, thank you. With the blonde hair.
Stephen, I'm gonna move you over. Give me 1 second.
That's interesting.
Right? There we go. Okay. Hold on. Stephen, I'm coming for you. Give me 1 second. All right, Stephen, if you could unmute and turn on your camera.
Can everybody hear me okay?
We can.
Great. Thank you, members of the board, Madam Chair, Stephen Veneruso from Veneruso, Curto, Schwartz and Curto, Yonkers, New York, here on behalf of the applicant pertaining to the premises of 133 State Street. I'm also joined tonight, I believe, I'm not sure if he's, I think he is on here, Eduardo Gallarza, he is the project's architect.
Okay, Eduardo, I'm bringing you over as well. When you come over, please unmute and turn on your camera. Okay, Stephen, do you want to kick us off?
Yes. So again, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm here on behalf of the owner applicant, the premises 133 State Street. The proposed project before this board consists of a construction of a two-family structure with a garage for 2 vehicles on the lower level, as well as a front driveway. The building, as some on the board may know, has been vacant for a number of years. My client purchased the property approximately 5 years ago. And my understanding is it's been vacant prior to his ownership about 15 years. So he's trying to revitalize this parcel, bring it back to life with a brand new construction of a two-family home. The proposal calls for the ground level, the structure to be a concrete masonry structure containing a two-car garage, a common area, a powder room, and a mechanical room. Now, the two upper floors proposed using a wood frame construction system, each floor containing a kitchen, living, dining area, as well as a balcony, a laundry room, one full bathroom, and 3 bedrooms. In accordance with the building application review dated February 2nd, the proposed project before you seeks several area variances. These area variances are for the front yard, the side yard, both side yards, rear yard, max coverage area, max impervious surface, and max number of stories/height. Additionally, the project calls for a parking variance for the number of off-street spaces provided. Before I jump into I want to make a couple points regarding the 5 points of law. Proper notice was sent out on this application. We have not received any negative feedback from the community. In fact, my client did call me today. Somebody had called him a neighbor for the parcel. I don't know whether or not they're in attendance tonight, but basically advocating for the property, stating that it has been vacant for so long, and they were excited to see this parcel come back to life. If I could quickly on the 5 points of law, and then I would open it up to any questions that the board may have of either myself or Mr. Gallarza. One, whether the requested variance would create an undesirable change on the neighborhood. I would argue that this would not create an undesirable change on the neighborhood, and to the contrary, I think we would submit that it would raise the overall aesthetic of not only the property but the street and the surrounding area, given the long vacant history of this parcel, as well as the fact that it's surrounded by similar two-family structures. I would argue that it would blend seamlessly into the neighborhood. Number 2, whether the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method more feasible to the applicant. The benefits sought here, we would submit that it cannot be achieved in a more feasible method. When developing the project, the applicant did look at alternate proposals as well as different ways to lay the property out and the home out. But ultimately, the seeking of variances, which we are looking for from the board, were a necessity to make it the parcel work, the structure work, as well as making it economically feasible for my client. Number 3, whether the requested area variances are minimal. We would submit that the general area variances are minimal, relatively speaking. However, if the board were to disagree with that, I would submit that the scope of these variances is greatly outweighed by the benefits that this project would achieve. Again, I'm told that this parcel has been vacant for over 20 years, and this project seeks to bring it back within the character of the neighborhood. So number 4, whether the proposed variances would have an adverse impact or effect on the environmental conditions in the neighborhood. I would submit that due to its nature and the fact that it's blending into the other structures and the uses for that street and for that area, this would not have any adverse impact on the environmental conditions. And lastly, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. Although I would argue that this was self-created, but as the board is well aware, that is not a determining factor, and it's merely a consideration for the board. And I would submit that, again, going back to a point I previously made, the applicant did look at alternative proposals in terms of how to lay this house out. But ultimately, given the parcel, the size, as well as trying to make it economically viable to develop this longstanding vacant parcel, we were left with the variances that we seek here tonight. So With that, I would welcome any questions that the board may have. Again, Eduardo is on. Eduardo, did you want to chime in on anything regarding the plans prior to opening it up?
Well, good evening. I just open to any questions if anybody has any question. I think Mr. Bento Russo just spoke clearly about the project. I don't know if anybody else has a comment on that.
Before we vote, let me just correct a couple of things. Property has not been vacant for 20 years. The current owner, when he purchased it, there was a house on there. He took a demolition permit to take it down because it was in dilapidated condition. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because if we were developing a vacant lot, you would need variances to the size of the lot and the width of the lot and so forth. But there was a house on here as recently as 6 months ago. So they're proposing to put back a house because the other house was in bad condition, was not repairable.
Correct. I'm corrected on that. So what I really meant was the client did take down the house that was there. It was really the condition of the house. I don't know whether it was occupied or not, but it was what I'm told was dilapidated. I don't know if anyone was living there or not, but that is correct. And for the record, that there was a structure there. We're seeking to put back a two-family house, which was already there.
Yeah, it was vacant for some time.
It was previously a two-family house.
It was previously, I believe, a two-family house. He took a demolition permit because it was not repairable. And the intent is to replace it with a new structure.
That's correct.
I was waiting my turn. Usually talk over people. So all of this makes sense with the exception of 3 things. I'm not even gonna ask questions about some things because they seem totally in line with decisions we made before. For me, front yard, side yard, both side yards, rear side yard, living floor per area and habitable floor area are all improvements over what was there previously. So that doesn't bother me at all. It's actually improvement over what would have been there if you were able to redo the house. My only comments will probably be on building height, impervious coverage. Maybe not even impervious coverage, really building height. Because that one usually comes down to economics. And I didn't see any economics in your package. We're just taking your word for it, but there are people in the audience here today who've been here before. We've also asked them for that. So I don't think it would be fair to approve this without actually having proof of the different plans you did and the feasibility of doing a 2.5 story, which is allowable, and a 3-story, which is not.
So can I piggyback a different way? Because when we look at the plans, the new plans, I don't know if you can bring them up. I had questions more on the parking in the front, because it looks like you are going to put a parking garage under the house, and then have 2 parking spaces in front of that garage. Now, I'm not sure if that's allowable because it would be parking in the front yard. So that was a big question that stood out to me. Secondly, if you're grading up to that garage, and I don't know, this may be a building department question, is that also considered a story? Because you'll be walking up to the house, or is it lower enough that you can take down a 1/2 story into the garage?
Well, that's a couple of questions. One is, right now, the applicant is applying for 2 spaces for parking variance, so they have on the plans 2 vehicles showing like they're doing tandem parking in the front yard. If they were proposing it this way, their variance request would be different. It would be for parking in the front yard. But tandem parking wouldn't be an issue because it's a 2-family house and you can have the tandem parking, because one apartment would have to run the garage and the other way, the other. But what does pose the question here is, because it wasn't really explained in the submission, is what the slope is to that driveway, because there's also in the zoning code where you can't have more than a 10% slope.
But it looked like on the new picture, it looks like they graded it all the way down to the grade.
Right, which is why I don't know if that's the reason why they end up with 3 stories, because when what you're essentially doing is to have the garages underneath the apartments there. That's completely out of ground, so it's 3 full stories.
Okay, so that was my question.
And then they have a staircase that looks like that staircase is why you're getting to the front door, which is essentially now the second
Second floor.
floor. Which is what I believe is what they're proposing, but with one of the questions, and I guess the architect can answer that, is if they have a driveway up. They're gonna have a driveway up to that garage if that has an incline that's more than 10%.
So Eduardo, so just if I hear the board right, so the height and the slope, I believe what you had stated is correct, but I'll let Eduardo take that as well as the parking. Eduardo, can you jump in on those points?
Yeah, we did the correction on all these issues regarding the incline of the ramp. We did the minimum required on that issue. So that's what I have. A section, you can see a section on the section. If you can move to a section, it explains clearly what the issues are. And also you can see also in the parking regulations and the T district. I did
Is there
also.
a specific drawing that you want me to pull up, sir?
You can move on the section plan, because I don't know if I can access my plans over here.
This?
Right there.
Okay,
Yeah, that's a building, right?
great.
So to achieve the parking of the garage, are you planning on doing a lot of excavation to bring the grade down? Because there is a retaining wall.
Yeah. There is no need because, I mean, there's a minimum excavation because, the house itself is in a higher level, and there's some stairs going down. And the existing conditions, I have some pictures of the existing house. It has some stairs going down, and I think that's the only part that you have to dig out in order to have the driving into the house.
Right, there was a retaining wall there, and when they did
Here,
the
right?
It was a
excavation.
retaining wall, yeah. We're removing that part in order to achieve the access to the thing. And also you have the stairs that we have on the left side of the project. That's what it is to get up to a higher point.
So parking will be at grade, at ground level?
Parking will be at the higher level of grade, correct. And then the driveway would go all the way down to the street level, to the sidewalk level.
So they're still asking to park in the front yard.
No, they're saying they want a variance from this board for the 2 parking spaces they will not be providing. It will only be the 2 in the garage.
It looks like they're pushing it further away from the front yard of what the firehouse was. So there's gonna be more space to park in their driveway.
I'm totally confused.
I'm not,
We
sure.
need
I
offsite parking or not?
guess the architect can clarify that. The
Yeah,
drawing
okay.
that he has shows 4 vehicles.
No, it's a
With
big
the
question.
intent of parking 2 in front of the garage. But you're requesting a variance where you have to have 4 off-street parking spaces. You're indicating that you're only gonna have 2. So the question is, are the 2 cars that you're showing on the driveway actually proposing parking there? Or that's just to show vehicles entering into the garage?
Well, I think the idea is that the requirement of the project is a 2-car per family for the 3 bedrooms. So we need 2 parking spaces for each unit. So that's we are proposing to have these 2 inside the house and 2 outside the house.
So isn't he missing a proper variance?
Right, so what you submitted for a variance request is to only provide 2 parking spaces on site. We were asking the board for 2 parking space variance. If you're proposing it this way, your variance request would be different. You'd be asking not for the number of parking spaces, but rather for parking in the front yard.
The way it's written is, we've seen so many of them, you're asking us by application to give you 2 on-street parking spots, consideration as a variance versus all 4 on the property.
But then the question, so this will be the flip of that, if you're asking for 2 spaces in, off on the street, then you need some kind of parking study, because I know that area. It's difficult to park on the street, so we don't have that information in front of us either. So we're kind of at a loss whether we don't have the right thing for tandem parking, or parking in the front yard, nor do we have the right thing for parking on the street, because we don't have the backup information for that either.
So if I could just jump in, Madam Chair, and Eduardo, you can correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is, initially there was some confusion regarding the parking. There was nothing listed on the, I don't know if it was the original plans or the original denial that was issued from the building department. But parking wasn't raised on that denial. My understanding, from the plans are that the ultimate plan of the applicant, and again, Eduardo, you can correct me if I'm incorrect, but my understanding is the plan is to park 2 cars in the garage, 2 cars in the driveway. Whether or not that was reflected accurately on the building denial and then carried through to the submission, I can double check that, but that's my understanding of what the applicant's plan is: 2 cars in the garage, and then it would be tandem, one car behind each one per family.
That's correct.
That's on the drawing.
That's what we intend.
That's idea. That's
it.
And I think there was some confusion. We apologize if that was on our end, but originally when the denial was issued, parking wasn't on there. I think after the submission, we worked with the building department a little on that, but if that needs further clarification, for the record as well as from the documents submitted, we're happy to do that after the meeting.
Wait, you're aware that in the code, it says that parking spaces have to be 9 feet wide by 18. If you look at the size you have in the front yard, that would be putting the car pretty much right up onto the sidewalk. If that's what you're proposing, then the board would have, you'd have to change your variance request for parking in the front yard. But then the consideration is the amount of space you have. Because I believe you're asking for a front yard variance, where you're pretty much only leaving yourself about 18 feet from the front facade of the building to the end of the property line. And if you have to have a parking space that's 18 feet in length, you're pretty much parking the back of that car right up against your property line.
But I think we have, the driveway is gonna be an empty space anyway. And if the code requires for 2 cars, we're just proposing to, they can park over there, because anyway, a car gonna go in through the driveway. And most of the people usually have the cars parked outside in the driveway. So that's why we propose to have 2 cars. After consulting with the code, it is required 2 cars per unit. So we have this to resolve that issue.
So again, yeah, just to jump in, if I'm hearing the board right, and I can follow up with DHB following tonight's meeting, if the applicant continues with this plan to park the 2 cars in the garage, that would require a separate essentially area variance.
Not in
Not
the garage, but in front of the garage.
No, yeah, the 2 spaces in the driveway, excuse me.
Yeah.
Correct, okay.
Put up that plan. What is the length that you're showing on the right
18
side?
feet, 5 inches.
85 inches.
So if you have to have 18 feet, you left yourself about 5
5
inches
inches.
from the property line. That would park the cars pretty much right up against the sidewalk. But you can propose that if you want to do that as a variance request for parking in the front yard. But then the board is going to consider that as a factor.
Yeah, if I may, any decision, any vote we make cannot be made on the assumption that you are going to leave that space empty. We need clarification as to the intention and therefore make a decision on, if you need the 18 feet, then the application should be updated to reflect that.
And I also believe Karen would have to, say, because that was not noticed.
That was not
Yeah.
noticed, so they would have
It would be a different variance, so that would have to be renoticed accordingly. And Joel, my question for you is if they are parking the 2 cars in the driveway, would they still be meeting the driveway setback for the T-zone? If it's pretty much flooding right up
It
to
would
it?
have to be a two feet off, well, it wouldn't be for the front because you have to have
Yeah,
a street access. But you would have to maintain the 2 feet of that on the property line, so,
okay.
which it appears they have that. because
They
they're
do
showing
that,
it. But You know, I mean, the code doesn't permit parking in the front yard, you'd have to apply for variance in this board for that.
So I will circle up with Eduardo as well as the applicant and confirm either does he want to stick with the spaces in the driveway and seek possibly a variance for those, or if I'm hearing the board correctly, go seek the off-street parking, which may require a parking study to be submitted.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to make you come back without having given you all the things we're actually asking for. So if it's on-street parking, it's a parking study. If it's off-street parking, but in your front yard, it's front yard setback, and that's not a parking study. But regardless, for the height, what you're asking is out of code. You have to provide evidence of financial analysis, which we asked. Well, because he, in his opening arguments, addressing the 5 points, he specifically said, it's not economically feasible. If it's not economically feasible, we can't take his word for it. We have to see that. And
So-
usually minimum
Maybe design
standard,
alternatives is maybe,
yeah,
Right, that's what I was gonna
That's
say,
it.
if
And
it's
the
possible for us
Oh, one
to
at a
see,
time, one at a time.
sorry, if it's possible for us to see the options that you considered before landing on this one.
Right, and I'll go one step further than that. I think, based on the character of the area, I need to know how much above the existing nearby properties this structure will not be.
Mike, Mike is used to seeing something we're all used to seeing, which is the structure put in, I forget the
Right.
architectural term for it, but seeing the new building as proposed on that lot next to the homes that are there in reality, so we can actually see how it looks in the neighborhood.
Right.
do you know if the neighboring,
Yes.
sorry. Do you know if the neighboring buildings in this neighborhood are also non-conforming with respect to height?
I would have to check their height, and I could also talk to the architect regarding getting a rendering to the board showing it relative to those buildings, so you can see what it would look like put on the lot.
I also, and just to be clear, this zone that you're in does not call for habitable, floor area. So we don't need that, like in your zoning worksheet moving forward.
Yeah, that somehow that was added after the first initial submission. And I'm not really sure what that represents, and that was the question we had where, because there's no habitable floor requirement. And he wrote off, it was written in there as 156 feet, we're not sure what that
Which
really
would
is.
require.
That's
variance.
great. We can
But
remove that.
Yeah, that's not a problem. I just do want to jump in on the proposal sought. I will talk to the applicant. I don't know that he has per se economic numbers like we would for a use variance or something like that. I think it was more in the totality of figuring out how do you structure the parking as well as getting a 2-family on there. So I think it was more viewing it in that lens rather than I don't know that he's going to have economic numbers to support that, but I will check with him to see what steps were taken during the initial planning. Absolutely.
Any more questions from the board?
Does the board have any comments on the impervious coverage?
Yes.
Yeah,
It does, am I reading this right? There's also there's a walkway on both sides of the building. So it's gonna be impervious pretty much, the
up to
whole
property
front
line.
yard, whole side yards, all the way till you get to the rear yard.
Yes, there's some, supposedly concrete pavers on each side. It's about 3.5 each on each side. And it slopes down all the way down to the street.
Would you consider using pervious pavers?
And that depends, how the client wants to treat that. But I will recommend that, that's for sure.
We can recommend that. Absolutely.
So that, because they're taking away all of the grass and,
Yeah,
the-
for like water, storm
Yeah.
runoff and all that.
Right, and when you're talking about the character of the neighborhood, if you look at all of the adjacent homes, they have little front yards and they're not parking lots in their front yard, so it's kind of, I would almost rather grant a variance for on-street parking and keep, not necessarily, again, not, I would be interested in seeing that as well, just because it's a lot of impervious surface, I don't know. Or any type of front yard treatment maybe that you could give to it that might help with curb appeal a little bit.
Understood. I'll discuss that with the applicant.
Completely agree.
That's usually. Great. Yeah, still love.
It's like it's a small lot.
Parking in one of the houses down the street.
No,
Well,
different
most of the
street.
homes on State Street don't have parking off street, but which contributes to the parking problem on
Right.
State Street. But the consideration is obviously when you're gonna put a driveway at the width they're gonna need, you're eliminating basically two parking spaces on the street.
On the street, right?
Yeah, the
So-
front yard one we did was on Broadway.
That's a good point.
There.
But I thought we did one on State Street as well, but down.
Yeah.
Down further. This property happens to be across the street from
Same thing.
Sing Sing, so.
I walk by that
like that,
place almost every day.
Yeah,
Isn't one of the conditions to be given a permit for overnight parking that if you must show that you don't have room?
right.
Mm,
Yeah, a lot of the homes, the people who live in the homes there apply for overnight parking because they don't have.
They don't
space
have
there.
the space.
Right.
So at least the 2-car garage is an improvement in that
Yes.
regard. It's just
Yeah.
still
Yes.
not.
As well as the
Agreed.
tandem parking, if they can get 4 cars off the street, great.
And now that we're mentioning that, what about
You know,
the,
the question is, I'm sorry, but.
okay,
No, go ahead.
now that we're mentioning that, what about the distance from the rear property line to the rear of the new building?
Oh, it looks
Is
like
there
they're
a lawn back
improving.
there or what?
Well, they're, yeah, and they're improving what it was before.
Yeah.
They're making,
Okay,
they're pushing the home further away from the property.
okay.
Wait,
Pushing being the wrong word, right? Because it
so
said,
they're getting closer to
No,
the
they're
property
getting
line.
closer.
They're having the backyard in half, they're taking it in half.
oh, it's the other ones. It's front, one side, both sides
Right, so
Okay.
they're moving the house back off of the,
to get that area,
You're just enlarging it
Oh, wow,
outside
that's-
towards the back.
5.42 feet.
Which when you're talking about economically feasible and you have a 3-bedroom too, and you're asking for impervious surface, it kind of makes me question like, why can't it be a 2-bedroom or something smaller? Why does it have to? But then again, at the same time, it meets the rear yard setback.
yeah, the rear yard.
So is that just a condition of the, the tiny lot?
So they need a variance for the rear yard.
No, it doesn't mean.
It doesn't even.
Is
So
So
what
it's,
was there, council,
Oh,
correct me
I
if I'm
see.
wrong, what
Sorry.
was previously there was 43.7 feet. Under the proposed design, it would be 24.58 feet, so they require a variance of 5.42 feet.
Oh, my God, okay, yeah, so that may even more so then.
There is a rear variance, yeah.
Alright.
Well, I
Are we-
mean,
are we-
you can see from the,
So-
what they said is previously the condition was 740 for floor area, now it's 1126 to accommodate that
Yeah,
increase the size, they moved building, and made it larger in the back.
gotcha.
so
But it's
proceeding
still not a
tonight,
very
like,
big house. I mean,
I'm assuming we can't vote tonight. Are we voting on any of them? No.
No.
Well,
So,
there
but I
there
do-
is a question, sorry, that was discussed, is the first, the ground level of the garage, what that area is gonna be.
Oh, that is true. In the back of the house, I forgot, if we pull up that picture and behind the garage, looks like a great,
Common
recreation
area
area.
with bar.
Yeah, are there plans for that in the future, or is it just gonna stay open?
Well, it's my understanding that the owner would like to have that open. They like that because there's a big space over there. They would like to have like a bar there so they can, whenever they come, stay there. That's what I gather from their information.
But the reason why that question would be asked is if they're increasing the size of the square footage of the house to
Right.
accommodate larger apartments, why would that space not be utilized
For parking.
For part,
for part of the apartment?
for part of the
living space?
apartment?
Hmm.
And also take care of the apartment situation in the front because you push the building to the back.
Right,
That would be a question to the owner. Again, if I may, remember, we need a parking area, a garage. So the space that is left is very difficult to fit something there, very comfortable. It would be very uncomfortable if there's any any residential unit there. So that's why we rather have the 2 floors, full floors, and very nicely spread over the area, and just a common area downstairs.
Well, the question that I would ask is, normally when you create what you're saying, common area, which would be, say, a recreation room with a bathroom, that
Okay.
living space is combined with one of the apartments, not a separate space where it has nothing, it's not part of the first floor or the second floor apartment, it's just another space. And as the architect said, is for when the owners come over, that, understand the way you're proposing that, that's not to be another apartment or a living space, because the absentee owner needs a space to stay. That would make it almost 3 dwelling units.
That's correct.
No, well, it's they wanted to have a bar there and probably have a gathering with the, as far as I understand, whenever it's necessary, and that's all what I know about this.
Place for gathering an event.
But gathering for non-tenants,
Exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say tenants or non-tenants, or just,
because then it's kind of like a commercial space.
Well, and then I would say that this proposal, that space has to be combined with a connection with the apartment above that, because that would be for that, people living in that space to say, well, we use it as our family room.
The owner
recreation room.
doesn't plan to live in,
Well, the way, but the architect just said, it's for when the owner comes there to stay there.
so the 2 apartments will be
It
rented
serves
out.
as an absentee owner.
so then
That's
my,
correct.
like, are the residents who are living there able to use that space as a common space to throw the, you know, like if they wanted to have parties or people over or family or, you know, a barbecue or
It would
something?
be strictly for them and not rentable to somebody else.
If you're looking for a feasible alternative, if that is not a part of those apartments for them to use directly, then you can shrink the property to meet not using the space for an absentee owner. So I think that's,
Or extend the garage. So you
or
can-
extend the
extend the
garage,
garage,
so you can have
So
all
that
4
you have
cars.
more than 5, you know, you'd have 5.
And then you wouldn't get parking in the front yard, because all your parking would be in the garage.
Garage.
In front of the other.
Yes.
I'll follow up following the meeting with the applicant to get a little more information on the plans. I know, just for the record, I know he does not have any plans for commercial gathering or anything outside of the tenants or the ownership. So, but I will get information around a little bit more to flesh out that common area and the board's points regarding it.
Variances live with the property, not with the owner. So if he turned around and sold it, whatever variance we grant lives on. So I think.
Understood.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? May I have entertain a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved, Kyle.
Seconded, Olga.
If there's no objection, the public hearing is now open. Is there anyone here in the audience to speak on this? Is there anyone on Zoom to speak on this? Seeing none, may I have a motion to
Adjourn.
adjourn the public hearing?
Motion to adjourn the public hearing. Brian.
May I have a second?
So moved, Kyle. Waiting for Mike to get his chance.
If there's no objection, the public hearing is now adjourned. I think there's some homework and some questions and some things that we need to see. So we're gonna, you know, they would have to know, if it's for the parking, they would have to renotice depending on which way they're going, right?
Yeah.
So and then for everything else, we just look forward to seeing you in the next, whenever all of that is done.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving right along. ZBA 09-2024, 156 Spring Street.
Jamie just-
Okay. Oh,
I'm Sergio Myron, I'm the architect. With me is the owner, Manuel Rio. And representing 156 Spring Street.
So before we get started, I do have to, let everyone know that this property is directly across from my house, so if there's no objection. I do plan on being objective and impartial, but if it is okay with you, I will continue, to go through the process. If not, I will recuse myself.
I'll be looking out for you.
You're good.
All right, so this property is, oh, sorry. This property is in the corner of James Street and Spring Street. So therefore has two front setbacks. So the deck that we're trying to legalize, the setbacks actually overlap. So this setback is a front setback and this is a side setback. There's no place to put this deck.
Let me bring it up on the screen just so you don't have to. point.
So that picture, there used to be a deck there before that was in disrepair. And it replaced the deck with a permit. So this is the first step. So I have two side plans there. The one on the left is with the existing deck that didn't conform. And the new one, the new deck is actually smaller. If you scroll down. Yeah. So, may I?
Yeah, sorry, we don't have a laser pointer, so whatever you point to, I will
Okay.
circle.
So this is the front setback from here. This is the side setback from here. So they overlap. This is the proposed deck. This is the existing deck that was there. This is the proposed deck.
So wait, the proposed deck that was there or the new deck that is
This,
there?
this deck was there and was taken down. The pictures that I showed, shows you from Google Earth, the existing deck. So that's the deck that was there. This is the deck that's proposed.
Proposed, but you built it already, right?
It's already built.
Yeah,
So-
so I say, so the existing deck is the smaller deck.
We'll know the
No, no.
existing based on what?
So this is the original.
This is the original.
That is now gone.
That's to be
which is
legalized.
This
This
is
to be-
current.
Yes.
Not
The second one
legal.
is the current.
Right. So first things first. So we gotta go through here.
So I guess my first thing is looking at this, it looks like you pulled it further away from the parking lot. You shrunk it down in size a little bit
Yes,
and you added the stairs to the right versus in the rear.
right.
Was there a specific need for changing the stairs?
Yes, because they park here. So this is in the middle of everything. These stairs actually, if you look in the section, they go down under the deck for basement
And that's,
access.
they're not gonna interfere with the church parking lot next door?
No.
No,
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, Mike.
they're still away from the property line, you know.
Still away from the property. Okay.
Yeah. I'm making it green though.
Yes, with the original deck that has been removed now, the staircase was actually in the setback, I guess, for the rear yard, which is now gone, but putting it on the side created the need now for a side yard variance.
Board should know that the lot width is only about 35.5 feet. And this district requires 30-foot front and rear yard setback.
Yeah, we come across that all the time.
The both side yard is 28 feet, I believe.
But I only have one side yard. I got two
Yeah,
front
which
yards.
doesn't apply.
This is what it looks like now.
Okay, gotcha.
Right, what's missing on that, what we have to correct is the front yard variance request. 'cause it's
Yes,
not
but if-
shown.
But is there a front yard variance?
Yes, because you're applying for a front yard variance.
Okay. so
From
for the
James
James
Street. So-
Yeah, it was kind of confusing. I'm not sure.
So if the board does ultimately vote to approve this variance request,
Just-
we're gonna request a condition that this zoning worksheet is updated just to include the setback from James Street,
Mhm.
which would go on that other section at the bottom.
Okay,
But it was noticed.
Yeah, but it was noticed, so it's, everything's okay to proceed. It's just a technical thing on the zoning worksheet.
Any other questions from the board? If there's no questions from the board, may I entertain, a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved, Mike.
Second.
Seconded Brian.
Is there anyone in the audience to speak on this? Is there anyone on Zoom to speak on this? Put down for nobody, so. we're good. Seeing no one, may I have, make a motion? May I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved, Olga.
Seconded Brian.
If there's no objection, the public hearing is now closed. May we go through the factors?
Absolutely. So the first factor the board must consider is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variances.
I think he might have given himself an extra parking spot, which hopefully helps alleviate that, by removing the stairs, so, no. But also it was smaller than pre-existing, and moving the stairs to the side adjacent to a parking lot, I don't think changes the character negatively.
The next factor for the board to consider is whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variances.
Good luck.
Yeah, with this, because setbacks as they are, there isn't any other alternative besides seeking an area variance to build a deck, so.
And a permit in the future.
I think they did the best they could with what they had.
Okay. The next factor is whether the requested area variances are substantial.
Numerically, but not impact.
But not,
The next factor is whether the proposed variances will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
It's already done, so it doesn't seem like it really has an impact. so-
Nobody seems to have an issue with it.
and they actually improved the look of what was there prior and made it smaller, so, actually they made, made it look better for the neighborhood.
Okay. And the final factor is whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the board, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the variances.
No overlapping setbacks, impossible.
Okay, but I would say maybe because they built the deck without going through the proper motions and,
Oh, well, I was considering they'd still have to come before us regardless, for the
That's
same
correct.
thing.
but, did they self-create this? That was what I mean.
Is it determinative?
No. Okay, so in light of hearing, from the board and going through the 5 factors, it is, noted that we would approve, this, applicant, ZBA 09-2024, 156 Spring Street, and, may I have a
Subject to the condition.
Subject to
the
the
zoning worksheet is
condition.
corrected.
That's correct, that the zoning sheet is corrected. Now, if that's not done, this isn't proof rate.
Hmm?
If that's not done, this isn't proof rate.
Okay, so.
So.
But that's between you and Joe. or-
Yeah, we have to just correct the worksheet.
Yeah, okay. I'll send it tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Okay, roll call.
Okay, Michael Stoll,
Yes.
Brian Granoff.
Yes.
Did you motion?
Oh,
and second?
Oh,
We did a
oh,
motion.
sorry.
hey.
Do we have a motion to approve? I'm sorry, I jumped ahead.
So moved, Kyle.
Seconded Brian.
If there's no,
I don't want to
yeah,
take the
roll
knot
call.
because of it.
Roll call.
Okay, Michael Stoll,
Yes.
Brian Granoff,
Yes.
Kyle Aberrizzi,
Yes.
Olga Montes,
Hi.
Chair Cheatham.
Yes.
So board, I send it to you.
Yeah, you can email it to me and I'll make sure it gets.
All right, very good.
Congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
normally we say don't do the work until you get the letter, but.
Yeah.
We may tell you you can't walk on it.
For show only.
Next up, ZBA 10-2024, 201 Eastern Avenue, Mary Ann McCormick.
And my name is Carlos Sosa River. I represent the Vicar Engineering. She is the owner. We have a little issue with the porch because we replaced the stair in the same location. Like is replacement on kind, we call that existing stair on the front porch. And we need 30 feet setback for the front and 14 feet, 8 feet side yard setback. And concurrently, we have a 14 feet from setback and 350 side yard. This building was built in 1890 and in the same way. They don't change nothing. I do little research and I check in the Westchester Git map for 1950 and it's the same. They stay in the same location. The elevation is the same. We don't change nothing except we repair and we renovate. We in the front porch, the only thing we're doing is we replace the railings, we replace the stair, and we reinforce in the front porch. This is the job in this property. I don't see any issue for the neighbors, for anybody. We don't make any, we don't separate any expense in this job.
So just to clarify, because Joe, you look at all of these, the existing and proposed are exactly the same.
Yes,
Essentially, the porch is the same, they had to replace the
This
staircase.
is similar to the first one we
Yeah,
had.
the same things that we, it's a new staircase.
Sure, like in kind.
You have to grant that variance.
I have no question.
You do it.
It's those staircases.
It's a staircase thing, right?
I mean, but
Lot
this
staircases.
one clearly says renovate though.
This one does say renovate, so that again was.
Well,
not-
they renovated the porch, but just as was just stated, they replaced the staircase. Staircase is a new structure.
yeah, the problem was in very bad situation.
Eventually, we have to eliminate.
But if you take
staircases.
down 3 walls and not 4 walls, it's not considered a replacement.
Yeah, the staircase though was considered a new structure.
But they only took down 3 bricks.
Kind of like zoning codes.
I'm messing with it.
Yeah, it's,
Okay.
took me a little while.
What's that, Joey?
Again, with this one as well, they need to correct the zoning worksheet because it did not
Yes.
give us any,
Yep, I'm going.
it just said variance required with no,
Yeah.
no measurements.
Yeah, so
So that
similar,
does need to be, I'm sorry, go ahead, Pam.
so similar to the prior application, if the board votes to approve this application, we're gonna request as a condition of approval that the zoning worksheet is updated. So where it says measurements of variance is needed, that should be the number of the variance required.
Okay.
And one thing to note is the front yard, 14 feet, I believe, is to the porch,
Okay.
but it's like 8 feet-ish to the stairs, so
Yeah.
that should be the number used. there.
Okay,
So
I got
it should be 8 feet to the stairs.
yeah,
Do you know to get the calculation correct so we don't end up having a?
yes, I think here is either 450 for the side yard and for the front is 16 feet.
But that's like, you said that was to the porch, they need the measurement of the front.
Of the
Property line to at the front of the
Yeah,
staircase.
yeah.
So it's
So if
8 foot 10 to
it's
front
on there,
staircase.
correct?
Yeah,
So
We
that-
can do the math for the purpose.
So that number is now what?
so
The street is 14 feet, because on the survey it's 26.
See where the cursor is right now, that should be built into a smaller number.
We can pull up the proposed
Where's the proposed?
plan, right, for the, so you can kind of see what the number is.
Yeah, this survey says
So if you kind of increase
14 feet
that,
To the step.
to the
the
porch.
stairs.
it says
To
to
the
the
porch.
Yeah,
stairs,
so
about
8 feet, 10
8
inches
feet, 10
on the
inches.
stairs.
So that would be what you're proposing is, the
Yeah.
difference is the variance.
Yeah. It's
So-
16 feet is from the stair.
So it's. what is
16
it,
feet with
80?
so that would be.
Does that say 8 feet, 10 inches?
8 feet, 10
Yeah.
inches.
my math serves me right, that's a variance of 21 feet, 2 inches?
Well, we do, it's not.
Well, property
Yeah.
lines are
Yeah,
visible,
yeah.
so
I think
after the
that's
property
my
line, you have to
Yeah,
say.
so
that.
Well, one at a time.
Sometimes you have a 15 feet the sidewalk.
So what he's proposing is like 8.83.
Okay.
So the variance would be the difference of 30 feet. Minus 8.83. The variance request is 21.1.
21.
And the side yard remains, the one side yard remains.
Inside remains the same.
So when those corrections need to be
Yeah,
made. on the zoning.
we will submit.
There are no, questions from the board? If there are no questions from the board, may I entertain a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open.
Olga,
Seconded Brian.
is there anyone in the audience? Is there anyone on Zoom? Seeing none and hearing none, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved, Kyle.
Seconded Brian.
If there's no objection to closing the public hearing is closed. Let us go through the 5 factors.
All right. So as we all know by now, the first factor of the. We get cards next time, just gonna hold them up. The board must first consider whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variances.
I'm gonna say no.
I'm gonna say no, it's in kind.
Okay. The next factor is whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variances.
Not feasibly, no.
It's an in-kind replacement.
Yeah.
Okay. The next factor is whether the requested area variances are substantial.
Numerically, but not impact. Seems like the case for everything.
Okay.
It's more than 2/3.
And then whether the proposed variances will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
Sure, only a positive one. I mean, you're improving on the house.
I don't think you can make things out of asbestos anymore, so no.
Okay. Then finally, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which is not being positive towards decision.
No, replaced in kind, existing non-conforming.
Okay. In light of going through the 5 factors, it looks like we have an approval for ZBA 11, which one. This is ZBA 10/2024, 201 Eastern Avenue. May I have a motion to approve?
Subject to.
Subject to, yeah, absolutely. Subject to the changes to the zoning,
Worksheet.
worksheet.
So moved, Kyle.
Seconded Brian.
Roll call.
All right, Michael Small,
Yes.
Brian Granoff,
Yes.
Kyle Abarizik,
Here, or yes? Sorry.
Olga Montez,
Aye.
and Chair Cheat.
Yes. Okay.
Why don't you change the worksheet, just email it to you.
Okay, I send you an email tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Permit second, do not do anything until you get.
Sure,
okay
sure.
and it's signed off.
We know that, we know. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Like a nice little house.
Up next, ZBA 11/2024, 2 Gilbert Park, Corey Spencer and Caitlin Ballas. I know this. I
Always
did
wanted to
that.
go to Gilbert Park.
Well, now, today's your day.
Are they on? No, they're on.
Hi, Corey.
Hi. What's going on, y'all?
Sup?
Is he in Tennessee?
Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay,
Corey,
I'm in
you
my
all-
car, but
Are you all on your lonesome tonight, or is there anyone else you're expecting?
I'm on my lonesome tonight, if that's all right.
Of course.
Fine with us.
Hopefully I
Tell
can,
us what you
hopefully I know what
want.
I'm talking about.
All right, Corey, we'll leave it to you to sort of explain why we're here.
Yeah, so we're adding an addition to our single family home. We had too many children and we don't have enough space, hence why I'm in my car. And
That's a legal
Here.
hardship, by the way. For the kids.
what was that?
Continue, sorry.
Oh, no worries. So the variance is in regards to the addition, an addition for extending our kitchen and a bedroom on the back of the house. There's a porch there currently, which we would remove. And the variance, essentially, it's sort of redundant, but the porch itself sits slightly over the allotted lines, or I'm going to say this incorrectly, so I apologize. Where the staircase is right there, that railing is almost, I think it's an inch beyond the allotted line. So we need a variance just to hit that marker. And we made the decision it would just make sense for us to get to that point for that space. And that's what the variance request is about. So we would extend the house backwards to hit that railing. Does that make sense?
I just want to be clear, you
Mhm.
are only looking for a rear yard addition.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
But one of the questions I have is, I believe the garage that you have now is being converted into additional living space, correct?
Yes, sir. That is also correct.
So the question was to the architect was, now that you're removing essentially code compliant parking space, which was in the garage, where the parking was going to be located, and when he submitted the revised plans, he's now showing the 2 parking spaces to be in the front where you're gonna widen the driveway. But what was, that may not be where you need a variance for the number of parking spaces, but parking in the front yard requires a variance, and that was not applied for.
So front yard parking variance. Yeah, according to our architect, a front yard parking variance wasn't needed, but if that's something that we need to apply for, then that's fine. Happy to do that.
Joe, I want to ask you a question, because I was thinking about this earlier. It looks like this is a 25-foot front yard setback. If he has 2 compliant parking spaces beyond the front yard setback, does he still need that parking variance?
Yeah, because the code says that parking in the front yard, which is
The required front yard.
required front yard, which is basically from the front facade of
Okay,
the building
just
to
wanted
the
to
front, it's considered parking in the front yard. Which is fine that he's proposing that to accommodate the 2 required parking spaces. But when he removed the requirement of a variance request for the number of parking spaces, he had to apply for parking where it's going to be located, which would be in the front yard of the property.
So is it possible for us to vote and discuss the current and then give him the condition that he needs to come back?
It wouldn't even be a condition. It has to be like renoticed and everything too, because it wasn't noticed. So the board, if it so chooses, can decide the rear yard variance tonight. And then the applicant can come back for whatever parking variance you might need. Or it's up to the applicant. If you'd rather the board wait, they can decide both variances at a subsequent meeting. It's really up to you.
Is there a benefit to go either way?
We can start work sooner.
Start work soon.
Well, what you'd have to do is essentially split the permit application up, because right now you have an application to do the addition together with converting the garage. What you can do is if the board grants the variance for the addition, we can make them into 2 separate permits, so you can start the work on the addition while you're waiting to see if you can get the variance.
That would be great. Yeah, I mean, so I would prefer if we could get an approval for the rear yard addition. I'll work on a permit application for the front yard, or for the front parking space, whatever the proper terminology.
I guess I'm just kind of looking at the property itself. Is there another place to park besides the front yard? Is there?
Well, the driveway accommodates 2 vehicles.
There's an existing driveway there too.
There's an existing driveway towards the garage.
Right, but that's kind of a tight driveway for 2 vehicles.
Well, they're
We're
wide.
gonna widen it.
Okay.
Well, the option would be is where he's widening it, he can put the parking along
On
the
the side
side
of the
of the
house.
house, which would make it compliant.
Right, so it doesn't, so he would not need the variance.
So like a carport type of situation? I don't know.
You'd have to create the two parking spaces, but they'd have to be on the side, but it appears that from the site plan that there is probably enough space to do that.
So I'm assuming that would be a discussion between him and whoever he's working with.
Yeah.
On the parking. Okay.
Yeah, I'll bring it up with them. Thank you.
That's, you know, I was just looking at because there's a
Oh, yeah,
lot of
there's lots of
space to the
space.
side of the
Yeah.
house.
Corey, is that clear to you, what we just said?
Yeah, you mean just to be, yeah, if we could clarify, the side of the house, you mean, like the actual
side
side
of the
that's where the
garage.
backyard is? Sorry.
Well, let me ask you a question. I guess what I'm looking at is a site plan. This is actually a corner lot?
Yeah.
This is a corner lot, yes, sir.
So then that wouldn't be it, because that
No,
would
it's a
be
front
two
yard.
front yards.
Oh,
Because one would be facing Highland Avenue and the other would be facing Gilbert.
Yep.
So even if he puts it alongside there, either way, he's gonna be in a front yard. So
you weren't supposed to notice that, Joe.
Well,
I have a
that's the same
question.
as one of our other applicants. So,
I have a question. Nobody's mentioned the porch, the proposed porch in the front. How does that affect the whole, coming back for the parking? And, the fact that like, the garage is being finished to be a living space, you said, right?
yes.
So we wouldn't just be voting on the addition to the back. We haven't talked about the porch.
I don't think
It
the porch.
doesn't-
Well, the
falls-
porch is
doesn't
not.
require any
it's- it's
variances.
It doesn't
No.
require a variance, it's just.
And
that
it
the
wouldn't
architectural-
affect the decision on the parking? There isn't like a,
We didn't have anything, that's just the Board of Architectural Review for the porch.
But I would say, based on it being in a corner lot, it kind of makes it difficult wherever they put the parking, it's going to be in the front yard. Or don't provide parking at all, which would not be adequate there, because I don't know where you park, there's no parking on South Island, and I don't believe you could park on the street in Gilbert. That does, benefit them for the factor of,
So
there's nowhere else to put it.
just to clarify, in the event that he's doing the front yard parking, that requires one variance, but if he did it on the side, that might require two.
No, you would need, well, that's a corner lot, so if he puts it alongside the house, he's essentially in the front yard setback again.
That's what I'm saying.
Right,
So
it would be
So it would be the front
Yeah,
yard
okay.
regardless of, but it would be that variance.
same one, okay.
Yeah.
Is he really on a corner lot?
Two public roads. Well, I guess it doesn't matter.
You know, unless you would have, we're asking for the parking to be on the opposite side of that.
But
Yeah, but then
nothing,
he'd have to
nothing,
move the whole
You'd
driveway,
have to
which
move the
then.
whole drive.
that doesn't
nothing
make
prevents
sense.
him from having, the garage turned into a living space. And then park two cars in the garage and just have the garage door area just.
I think we're starting to go a little too far down the parking
Right, so
avenue.
he's gotta figure out the parking and then just come back. and let
Yeah.
us know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll come back.
But we can talk about the rear yard setback variance.
Yeah.
Which is.
1.5 feet or inches?
Inches, I think.
It is. No, it's 1 foot.
It's 1.5 feet or
It's
one.
1'5", yeah, that thing.
So it says the required is
60.
20 feet, proposed is 17.75 feet. So that's a variance of 2.25 feet.
Hmm. Does he have to update the worksheet upon approval, or because it's on the plan, do we just?
Wait, did you say that again?
Hold on.
No.
You're right.
the
Oh, sorry,
proposed
that's
is
time
20.
up. I was looking at the wrong. Sorry.
The proposed is 20, and, I mean, the required is 20, the proposed is 18.5.
Right.
Or 15.6, I don't know which, yeah,
Hold on.
Oh, that's the old one, I see.
yeah, the old one was 30.
Why
and
is there two
17.
numbers there?
Yeah. I'm not
Yeah, that's
sure.
17,
I
I
don't
don't need to be
either.
on there.
Unless it's Is it catty corner?
I'm looking
No,
at
because
the-
on a corner lot, you have two front yards, one side and one rear yard. And you choose which one you want to be the side and the rear yard, so if they're calling this the rear yard setback. Where the addition is going, then that's the request that they're making for the variance will be from.
Okay, but which one are they looking at for the rear yard? Is it gonna be 1.5 or 4.84? I mean, not that it makes too much of a difference, because
Well, I
it's
mean,
not really substantial.
I'm looking at the zoning chart on the plans.
Yeah, same.
And it says the required is 20 feet. Existing is 30.67 feet, proposed is 17.75 feet. And so the zoning worksheet is different, and Jill, let me ask you a question, that staircase. It's 15.16 feet, so.
That's why they have two numbers, because
Yeah,
15.6
this is where the addition is, this would be what the setback is.
Is to the staircase.
to the staircase.
This is
Which
part
would
of the
be for the,
building.
which is saying 15.16.
Yeah.
So that was the 4 point.
So what they're looking for is 4.84.
So just like the previous applications, if the board does decide to grant this rear yard variance, we're gonna request that you just update the zoning worksheet to reflect the proposed of 15.16, the variance,
It's on there, it's
Is
just
it?
kind of,
just to clarify it.
yeah, so they can take away the 20, the existing, is 17.75, I believe, or 30.6, I don't remember which one. And just say the proposed is 15.16, but because they have all the numbers, so
Yeah,
that's.
we're
what
just trying to
it's
get all of our applications like clean and.
Yeah, 15.16 and 4.84.
Right.
Yep.
For the variance request.
So for the rear only, so what our discussion is there any other discussion from the board? May I entertain a motion to open a public hearing?
Motion.
moved, Olga.
Seconded, Brian.
If there's no objection, the public hearing is now open. Is there anyone in the audience to speak on this? Is there anyone? Well, no. Since there's no one to speak in the audience or on Zoom, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved, Kyle.
Secondly, Mike.
And if there's no objection, the public hearing is now closed. Okay, here we go. Ready?
I'm ready. I think I have it memorized.
Okay.
Hey, Mr.
First
Spen-
factor,
Mr.
come on.
Spencer.
Yeah, I'll do it now.
Make it clear, this is just for the rear yard.
So yeah,
This is just the rear yard. We are not discussing parking. We will ask that, the applicant come back at another time when he has noticed the public and figured out his parking.
All right, the first factor is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance.
No, it's just taking an existing porch and turning it into a living space.
I agree.
Okay. Whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance.
I mean, yes, but I don't think it's determinative because he could stretch it out, but I think that's.
No.
He already has a pre-existing porch there, so he's just following that footprint.
Okay. And whether the requested area variance is substantial.
And no.
Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
Again, I'm gonna say no.
I would say no, but it depends on how many kids he has.
The next question.
Right after this meeting. Okay, and then finally, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the board, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the variance.
I don't think it's determinative, and I'm maybe yes, but also no.
Well said.
Seriously, there's.
I think it was my very first thought when he said we had too many kids. I said, okay.
Not my fault.
That's what fails.
With that being said, it seems like we have approved, for the rear yard only, your rear yard setback variance only, at this point in time. So I may have a motion to approve the rear yard setback, as, for 2 Gilbert Park as noted.
So moved, Mike.
Second, Kyle.
Does the board want to condition on just correcting the worksheets of the right numbers
Okay.
there? Or?
Yeah, can you just clean, and I'm not gonna say correct, but clean up
Clean it
the
up.
worksheet so that it's,
Right.
easier to read.
That's the 1516 and 484.
Yeah, so just take out the numbers that aren't needed, white out words.
Okay.
Once you know how you want to propose the parking, then you just have to apply separately for that variance.
Okay, no problem. Will do. Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion from Michael and a second from Kyle.
I guess we do a roll call.
All right, Michael Spall,
Yay.
Kyle Everett,
Yay.
Olga Montez,
Bye.
Brian Grana,
Aye.
and Chair Tucci.
Aye. May I ask a question before we go forward? Are we allowed to waive the fees for a second permit? Because it's already on here.
We can discuss.
We'd have to look into that.
Yeah.
Thank you for the consideration. And thank you, everybody.
Have a good night.
Good night, guys.
Good night. Next up. You ready? DBA 12/2024, 237 North Highland Avenue, Manicchio Brothers, Inc. Is that where we are?
Yep.
Oh, okay. How are you?
Good evening.
What are you doing?
I'm well, how are you?
Okay, you ready?
I am ready.
You got a lot to say?
I can try to be brief.
Thank you.
I'm gonna start with Bill. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've never been in a room with 3 Corys. So that's just mind blown. I know we all spell our names differently.
How you get an approval.
That's right.
And they're schmoozing.
So for the record, Corey Salvo from Zarin Diamonds here tonight on behalf of the applicant, connection with this area.
Must be new, because I've probably seen every attorney there.
Say, I haven't seen.
I haven't seen you before.
I've been there for 3 years.
Okay, see?
So relatively.
Newish.
Newish.
Right.
Here with me this evening is Peter Saltakis from Kimberly Horns, a project engineer. So as we said, the applicant's the owner of 237 North Highland. Properties in the OR zoning district, currently improved with the gas station. Approximately 3,000 square foot commercial building that has a convenience store, car wash, and a vehicle service base. The applicant's proposing to essentially modernize and renovate the facility. So that's going to include restriping the parking lot, replacing the existing freestanding sign, again, overall aesthetic improvements. And then we're requesting to eliminate 1 of the service bays. Right now there's 3, so we go down to 2 service bays and then expand the retail store by about 400 square feet. So in connection with that, based on the building inspector's referral letter, he noted 5 different variances. 3 are your run-of-the-mill area variances. 2 are variances for non-conforming uses. As we looked at our plans, one of the variances he noted was the size of our parking spaces. Currently, we have 16 spaces on the site. We are going to restripe those spaces and we will reduce the number by 1, so we'll have 15 spaces. We only need 14, so we're still zoning compliant, but that will allow us to get our parking spaces all zoning compliant as well. So we don't.
They were too skinny before, was that that?
I don't know if it was too skinny or too short. I think it was too
I
short.
think it might have been too short.
I think it was too short. I think it was, the parking spaces needed to be 9 by 18, and for some reason, and I don't have it with me, I think a couple of them just fell short. Of that number.
And this still allows the entrance and exit for the car wash
Yes.
with reduced number of spaces.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, so again, we're reducing 1 space, all those parking spaces were compliant, so we don't need that variance. Impervious service,
was noted as a variance.
Could you just make sure that on your zoning, on the plan, that all of the spaces then are 9 by, like, show.
Dimension.
That they're dimensioned.
100%.
So just so we're on the same page, you're saying that all the spaces proposed are code compliant.
Correct.
Cool.
So you can take that off. Impervious surface.
That never happens.
What's that?
There's never enough property. You're good, I'm sorry.
So we're allowed to have 50% impervious. We're at 99%. This is an existing condition. We're not adding any additional impervious. It just is what it is. So while that may be substantial, again, it's an existing condition. It doesn't change anything on site, how it operates. And then the maximum size for a freestanding sign is 40 square feet. Right now it's 60.4 square feet, and we're proposing to maintain that 60.4 square feet. So we'll need a variance of 20.4 square feet. So I don't know if we want to stop here and have a discussion about the area variances before we jump into the non-conforming, or if we want to keep going with the non-conforming aspect. of
So
this.
I'm gonna jump in here. So on Joe's referral, he identified two additional variances being needed. One for the changing of the non-conforming use from the mechanic shop use to the non-conforming retail use. And then one for the expansion or the extension of the non-conforming retail use into that garage bag, for lack of a better word. So I think that's kind of a threshold issue for the board to determine.
Isn't there a part of the code that addresses that, as long as it doesn't get bigger? I thought I read.
So this was actually known as interpretation because I
Yeah,
think it's up for interpretation here.
there's case law here, isn't there?
There's everything here.
Yeah.
This is one of those things. So the code has two sections that are kind of in conflict in this kind of situation. The first is the language about extensions and enlargements. And this language says, no non-conforming use shall be enlarged or extended, nor shall the intensity of the use be increased except pursuant to the following. And for commercial sites, the only way it can be extended or enlarged is if any non-conforming use of a building or structure may be extended through any parts of the building or structure that were obviously or manifestly arranged or designed only for such use at the time said use was rendered non-conforming, which is like in Spanish, right? So that's one section about expanding non-conforming uses.
The other convenience store slash gas station situation, convenience store, that wasn't an OR district, right? The one that got.
I don't believe so, but let me
Oh, it
That
was
was
a
residential
residential district.
let me continue my train of thought and then
But-
we'll
Okay.
Yeah,
backtrack.
because you have to
Yeah.
kind of hear the whole, because, yeah, it's.
The next section that's kind of in tension with that language is there's a provision in the zoning code that allows this board to approve a change of a non-conforming use to another change of non-conforming use. And the language is specifically, no non-conforming use shall be changed to another non-conforming use without approval by the zoning board of appeals, and then only to a use that the ZBA has found. One is of the same or of a more restricted nature. Two, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. And three, will not cause adverse aesthetic, environmental, or ecological impacts on the property or on surrounding areas or otherwise be injurious to the neighborhood or detrimental to public welfare. So one of these code sections, the extension language, is about, pretty much says you cannot extend or enlarge unless that space was originally configured for that use. The other section is the board can approve a change of one use to another as long as it meets those three criteria. In my opinion, it's one or the other. It's not both because it doesn't really logically make sense to approve the change of use, but then say you can't extend the use. That makes sense?
Right, so I think the question to us is if we're looking at
Right.
what they're going to do in that building, what really makes sense. If they're telling us they're taking away one of the bays that they're using for, mechanicals,
Right.
you know, which is
Oil, grease,
grease,
et cetera.
but what they're expanding is the, retail use, which is less, you know, of an impact. Then we have the choice and we could go and, you know, we can look at, the section of the zoning code that actually says we could increase the retail, which is already there.
Right.
If we're decreasing, what would be the impact on the environment?
For those who have been here, they know I'm the biggest stickler with use variances, but in this case, that makes sense.
Right.
I think it makes
That-
sense for the change of use
Yeah, yeah.
provision to control here, 'cause that's what they're doing.
I
That's
think
what they're doing there. 'cause
400 square
totally-
feet of retail space is less environmentally disturbing than a mechanic shop.
And
Among,
there's no
among
alteration to the
noise,
building.
noise is
No.
also an issue.
So the
We have
building essentially is in the same footprint, it's just how they're.
Yeah, but not-
changing the
I agree with,
use.
yes, I agree with Kyle.
If I could throw one more thing in the mix, that
No, 'cause you
I
have
believe
lots.
you're only supposed to have no more than 2 vehicle repair bays for this sort of use, and we have 3, so we would be coming closer to conformity with
That is a
how,
great point.
with how many repair bays we have as well.
Moving closer to the code is how you get us.
Third quarter.
That's what I. I'll take you to the third quarter, that's fine.
Third quarter. Oh, it's 9 o'clock yet.
So I
Well,
guess, for purpose of, procedure. What the board is doing is make an interpretation as they're saying that this is actually a less intensive use, even though it's non-conforming. So they're not necessarily granting a variance per se, but rather agreeing an interpretation of one of the 2 sections of the code.
Yes, and then they'll be applying the test.
This is very different than the other.
It's
situation.
very different.
Yeah.
Yes, very
So-
different
Right.
than the other one. So we'll be applying that, the test to that,
The second,
the portion of the code that,
So I guess my first question is the board in agreement that
Do you
the
think we should
change of
take an
use
informal
language?
vote on that, so
I
we
think
have it in the record?
probably, yeah.
yes.
Why don't
Should
you
we
read that
also
one
do
more
the-
time, and let's give us
So-
this opportunity to do the second one.
Right,
I
so the
wanted-
change, the
yeah.
change of use, this, not the.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say, I think it's subsection, was that 39 that you read the first time?
Yeah, it's actually all in section 39.
But first one is D and the second one is F.
Yeah,
Okay, so F is the one that we're looking at, right?
yes.
subsection.
Well, we're
30.
looking at D and F.
No, we're, yeah.
D and.
D and F.
Okay.
So the change of non-conforming use language, I'll read it again just for purposes of clarity. So it says, no non-conforming use shall be changed to another non-conforming use without approval by the zoning board of appeals, and then only to a use that the ZBA has found, 1, is of the same or of a more restricted nature, 2, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, and 3, will not cause adverse aesthetic, environmental, or ecological impacts on the property or on surrounding areas, or otherwise be injurious to the neighborhood or detrimental to the public welfare. So that's the change of use language. Then again, just for clarity, the extension and enlargement language is no non-conforming use shall be enlarged or extended, nor shall the intensity of the use be increased except pursuant to the following. Any non-conforming use of a building or structure may be extended throughout any parts of the building or structure that were obviously or manifestly arranged or designed only for such use at the time said use was rendered non-conforming.
That was F.
That was that.
So we,
That was F.
it seems like we want D.
D.
Yes, okay.
That
39
makes no
39
sense,
D.
by the way.
None of them ever do.
And if we could just do one
That's
more
fine
thing,
with
could
me.
we just read the O-R zonage words, what, this is a different zone than a previous case we had.
Yeah, that was a residential.
And
area.
actually,
Oh, that's
the
what
other
it's on.
case,
See, always take-
well, the other case was also
Yeah.
different because they were increasing the
Increasing
size of
size.
the building. This case is, the
Right.
building size is not changing, it's the
The
configuration.
zoning designation doesn't change this at all.
No.
O stands for what?
Office.
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 Yeah, that's why I went over to look at that zoning code
Okay.
thing.
Fine.
Yeah, and that's just the sign, and it's really the same size as the sign that's currently there.
Correct. We're not asking for any expansion. besides
I
this.
think-
And there's no more side.
I did go
side
out and
elevation
measure it.
before.
It's a big ladder you got on it.
So do you want them to, summer area, I think, because there's an area variance. So-
Yeah, so now that the board has kind of gone through that, I think now we can discuss the area variances, and after the public hearing, we'll apply the factors for the area variances as well as the change of use analysis, if that makes sense for everybody. Right? Area variances.
So there's the lot area variance, which is existing, proposed, and there's no change.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think that was a variance that was put as a requirement. I think that's what's showing on the worksheet.
Right.
Yeah, the requirements for impervious
same.
surface,
Right.
parking spaces, which we brought into conformity, so we don't need that one. And then the maximum size permitted for a freestanding sign.
Right, and I think the parking spaces, the issue was there was some of the parking spaces along the right side of the property that didn't have the proper length.
Right, so he said they fixed it.
Yeah,
And that's being corrected.
Yes.
Okay, so he said we could take that off, but he would make sure that he
I
upgraded.
missed that.
I know. you
I'll
do,
dimension,
but
we'll have the plans dimension for you.
he-
And so just Joe, for the impervious coverage, so the existing is 99%, the proposed is 99%,
That's correct.
so
So I guess in that sense, the question was to ask is even though they're doing this, the new site plan approval, there's really isn't much change in total coverage. So if that's the case, then I would think you wouldn't need a variance, right? Either because there's no change.
Okay.
Fine,
We
we
don't
pull
need.
that one off.
we can take that one off.
does the board agree with that, since there's no change to the coverage?
That's all striping that's just being done. on the site.
Correct.
There's no.
The-
No new paving, okay,
No.
no.
No
paving,
resurfacing.
Yeah, no resurfacing. Okay,
I believe the only thing that's changing is the locate, the way the pumps will be in front or have a different.
and the planning board did steeper, and it was changing.
We're headed to the plan.
The planning board is the next step.
That's next.
That's on them.
Yeah, planning board or VAR.
So then it's just a sign?
At this point, it's just this is new sign that's gonna variance, and I think it's the freestanding sign
Correct.
for the setback off of the.
The size.
The size.
Yeah, so 40, you're only allowed 40, we have 60.4.
Correct.
I mean,
the
It
variance
is
would be
deficient in
25.
setbacks as well, but that's a pre-existing.
Right, understood. Yep, so you're really looking at one area.
So if the sign is the same size, we still need a sign?
Well, he's saying that the size of the sign that you're replacing with is larger than what's permitted for freestanding sign, correct?
It's
But
larger.
it's the
but
same
permitted,
size
but
as
it's the
what's there.
same.
So,
But it's a new case, you're replacing like the casement and everything like that. So it's a new.
It's
sign.
a
So the new-
it's a new sign.
physically new
Yeah,
sign.
the old sign is coming down, and a new sign is going up, but it's all gonna,
so
new poles, same
I-
size.
I will only say for the record, it's not gonna influence my decision on the other step, but we just had the signage discussion that was several months long. I do have to say that if you're completely replacing something, you should be trying to get it closer to the code, because you have an opportunity to do it now.
But I'm gonna say
Can I
that we
ask a
just talked about this with the gas station that is right down the street that had the same issue, the same size, the same size, same sign. So I can't imagine that we would ask this one that's on the other end of the same street to have a smaller sign.
It looks like this is gonna be a Sunoco. Do you know if the signage requirements are established like by the Sunoco brand?
That's what's in there.
I know for a fact that doesn't matter because
Yeah, they can
there's.
do whatever they need to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I've seen two villages that I've lived in where Sunoco specifically modified to meet the needs of the community, which they didn't allow freestanding signs. So they had to change their entire outside. They had to make the building look like it was a Tudor style building, which I don't think is in the normal
That was
franchise plan.
all part of the architectural code for that entire village probably, right? They had to look a certain way.
That commercial portion of the district.
It's like the 7-Eleven in Terrytown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just went through this with the application
Yes.
recently that said in one location you were able to reduce the signage, even though there was branding different,
Yep.
which was Popeyes.
Yep, Popeyes.
But,
Radcliffe,
but we
Taco
did
We had a
Bell.
shell
We
application
did
where
the shell right down the street, which
Yeah.
is the same size. That's why I'm asking, that's what I'm saying. It's the same size sign that they're asking for now that we just did down the street. So that's why
But
I'm
it's,
saying,
it's a different district, isn't it?
no, it's down the street. It's the same district.
Yeah.
It's on the same street. It's
on
like
the same
street. They all fire.
And they built a new sign.
Yes. So I said, it's no different than the gas station that is directly down the street from them. So I don't think it would be prudent for us to do something smaller just because we're making,
But I think
Agreed.
what you're saying is that's your determination of granting the variance as opposed to whether or not one's needed.
That's correct. All right, thank you. Okay. Are there any other questions from the board? If there are no questions from the board, may I entertain a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved, Olga.
Seconded Brian.
If there's no, if there's no objection, the public hearing is now open. I almost forgot what to say.
Yeah, I'll leave it there.
I take it there's no one on Zoom to talk about this as well. And if that is the case, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing, Brian.
Second.
My God.
Seconded.
Okay, and if there's no objection, the public hearing is now closed.
Okay, so we're gonna look at the change of use factors first, which is not a variance. So, for the third time, I'm gonna read this. So, no non-conforming use shall be changed to another non-conforming use without approval by the ZBA, then only to a use that the ZBA has found. The first factor is whether this use is of the same or of a more restricted nature. So do you find that the proposed non-conforming retail use is of the same or more restricted nature than the automotive bay use?
Yes, do we have to give our reasons.
If you can elaborate, that would be great.
Reducing from 3 bays to 2, which puts it within code,
Right.
closer to code. Changing a mechanic shop into retail space and keeping it to the same footprint.
Then the second factor for the board to consider is whether the retail use will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood.
No, actually, it will improve the character of the neighborhood. It will look much, 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 much better.
That's a lot of munchies.
It's also less intensive, like there's not cars and oil.
Oil and stuff.
Yes.
It's cleaner, it's neater, it just,
And that has so much residential around it on the backside.
Yeah.
actually, the daycare's next to it.
Ooh, even better.
I'm hoping it'll be more inviting, because I'll be honest, it's not inviting the way it is now.
And finally, with respect to the change of non-conforming use, the proposed retail use will not cause adverse aesthetic, environmental, or ecological impacts on the property or on its surrounding areas, or otherwise be injurious to the neighborhood or detrimental to public welfare.
No, it's improving it.
Actually, you're taking away some of the.
Ecological
Right, Go ahead.
negative.
that stuff.
Eat that.
We have words.
Did you get that?
I got it.
Okay.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. So based on the board's discussion, it sounds like the board has approved the change of the non-conforming auto bay
Right.
use to the non-conforming retail use.
The only thing I would think you'd want to add to that would be the section of the code that you're using in order to.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I'll cite it in the resolution.
Okay.
So do we vote on that or is?
We're just gonna, yeah, actually, sure, let's do that. So, we'll do a motion to approve the change.
May I have a motion to approve the non-conforming
The change of non-conforming use of
of the property at 237 North Highland Avenue.
So move, Brian.
Second, Kyle.
Okay, roll call. Michael Spall,
Yes.
Olga Montez,
I,
Kyle Everizzi,
Yes.
Brian Grano,
Aye.
Chair Cheatham.
Yes.
All right, so now,
Usually the biggest hurdle, so.
yeah, that's why I did it first. So now we'll consider the area variance for the sign. So the first factor the board has to consider is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance.
As the chair mentioned, that it's been done in the same district close by, so I would say no.
For another gas station too.
Yes.
Exactly.
And it's currently,
And
the
it's-
sign that's already done.
Yes.
Wait, let's start with something. Isn't there an existing canopy over the gas pumps right now?
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. but-
And isn't it got, company designation on it?
No.
No, it's
No,
all
that's,
fine.
that's,
They probably had to take that stuff down.
okay, so the only designation of the property will be the new pole sign then.
Well, they are putting up logos and things according to the plan.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Next, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance.
Yes, and I think it should be stated because I already brought it up. So even though the board previously looked at something at the other end of Highland Avenue, technically, to move it closer to code, they could shrink it like, some of the cases we've asked in a different district, like with Popeye's Chicken. I just think it should be noted that, yeah.
Okay, the next factor is whether the requested area variance is substantial.
Yes. I think it's a 20-foot variance.
20 square foot, 20.4.
Oh, because we're not voting on impervious. 14.2, no.
No, this is just the sign, so
This is just
20.4
the
square
sign.
feet.
So permitted is
40.
40 and then proposed is 60.4.
No, numerically, yes, impact, no.
Okay. And then whether the proposed variance would have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
Adverse, no.
And I would say no, because it is replacing a pre-existing, even though I don't like it, but it's new.
I think it would just improve.
It's gonna look better for sure
It's
than what's there now,
Mhm.
but we're talking about the size.
This is like the physical or environmental, not so much like aesthetics, that's more of the character neighborhoods, it's like what impact will this have on the land and the surrounding.
No, because there's really no change. They're just replacing what is already there, so they're not really.
Bigger obstacles, less sun, yeah, I don't wanna go into.
I just thought of something, not that I'm trying to open up a new can of worms, but the, there doesn't need to be a traffic study, right? Because you're putting in a car wash.
No,
It's already there.
Oh, it's already there?
It's-
Okay.
And actually, because they're removing a mechanical bay, they should have less traffic.
Yes. By the
Well,
way,
if the car wash
car
is any
wash
good,
all
there could
property.
be a line.
But I believe that's part of the factors for site plan approval.
Okay.
Because there will be some study because of the traffic flow.
As you were.
But could there be more traffic if there's more retail use?
It's associated with the other things, I would say, more than.
Yeah, a car physically goes into the mechanic shop, people are already parking there and walking into the store, and they have less parking spots.
Right.
So.
Great.
Good question.
Okay, do we?
Okay, finally, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created.
Yeah, because it's.
I'm gonna say yes, obviously it's not determinative, because they could make a slightly smaller sign to get closer to code.
Good.
Having deliberated,
Having deliberated, it seems that we have agreed to approve the non-conforming use first.
he's already voted on that.
Okay, so good. So the sign, the area variance for the sign for 237 North Highland Avenue. May I have a motion to approve them?
Motion to approve, Olga.
Seconded, Brian.
Roll call.
All right, Olga Montez,
Aye.
Kyle Aberrizek,
Yes.
Brian Granoff,
Aye.
Michael Spall.
Yes.
Chair Chi.
Yes.
Third Corey, thanks you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Probably
The third Corey and.
We're not gonna do any work until we get site plan approval
Okay.
and BAR approval
Okay.
and the building permit.
Okay, now you know.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Next.
Almost home.
Continuing business. Oh, did we make it to continue?
Yeah.
Continuing business of the board, ZBA 022024 Briarcliff Drive South. Is there anyone here to speak on this?
Hello.
Is there anyone besides Mr. Hernandez?
Oh, if I have to.
We're back to see us again.
So, Mr. Hernandez, what are you doing?
Where we have is from the last time we were here, there are two things we wanted. We provided with materials to show the board that one of the comments that we received the last time was the implication of having a 6-foot fence was that they were going to be a precedent or really allow the same type of fences in the village. We just wanted to show that it is most common than with all this kind of fencing in the residential districts. However, having said that, we did listen to the board and to the chair, and we are proposing the fence to be a 4 feet high fence. So we reduce the height of the fence to 4 feet.
So that was one of the questions we had. Were you staying with the application being 6 feet?
Well,
Or are you saying your new application is
So your
4
new,
feet?
is your new application for a 4-foot fence?
well, listen.
Okay, that's a yes or no?
uh,
I assume that that's what we would have to do, right?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think that what we need, I guess it was kind of, it was not clear in what we were given, so I'm just asking for clarification. So if we're still asking for a 6-foot fence, or are you asking for us to approve?
No, I think we'd be very satisfied with a 4-foot fence.
Okay, that's what we need to know.
So
No.
the fact that it's actually smaller, does that allow them to do, so they have to move it?
So I spoke with Linda about
can't
this.
hear.
Alright, so, sorry, I know we're all talking over each other. Can I get the name and residential address of both the gentlemen, since
Sure.
we're all talking?
Sure, I'm the vice president of the board there, John Andoska is my last name, Andosca.
Okay.
Need the address?
Sure.
It's 3 Briar Cliff Drive South.
Thank
I think the question was, we always said, you were
Yeah.
asking Linda was, if the application is changed to be a 4-foot where it requires 3, as opposed to a 6-foot, is that?
Yeah.
Considered to continue forward with that, or they have to renotice? that?
Yeah, so I spoke with Linda about this today, and since the applicant's not proposing in excess of the 6 feet that was noticed, the board can proceed on a 4-foot, on the application for a 4-foot fence. If the board feels that it has enough information to
To
vote
move forward.
to move forward, otherwise it would be appropriate for the application to be submitted.
Other than shrinking it by 2 feet shorter under this proposal, and if we can vote on it, nothing else is materially changed.
No.
No, so it's the same color as, because again, this said white vinyl and I was kind of confused. Are you changing the color?
It's for white vinyl, so is it white vinyl?
Same,
So that it is this second, so
It's
what,
just typo?
yes.
okay, so then what you're doing is the lower portion of the
Well,
fence
basically, cut, yeah.
will be, or has been, or
No, will be,
or-
cut will be. And also, I mean, if you look at it, if it's cut down to a third, then you virtually have a 3-foot fence with like 8 inches of view above it, which is open, so. It'll be a 4-foot fence to the top, but as you can see, the top portion is, clearly, people that clearly can see through
Okay,
So it still remains true that you have a feasible alternative, which is to do what the other side of the street did without having to come to the zoning board.
it. Well, no, the other side, he has a 4-foot.
they have a 4-foot fence, that's why so I'm gonna
Okay.
bring back to, I guess.
But you can also see through their fence.
So that's what they're doing, so that's what they said, they lowered it down, so the part that you can't see through is shorter, and the part that you can see through would still remain open so that you can see. So that's what, and I'm speaking for them, and I'm sorry, but the proposal is to take away the part 2 feet of what you could not see through and open up the top part, which was the additional 2 feet, so that you could see up and down the road. Which was what, some of the questions that we had from before, that there wasn't very much sight, so they're opening up to the sight, so it mimics what's across the street.
I think that's incorrect. Across the street is like a great bar. I don't know if the formal term
Right,
for
but
it.
I
This is
think
still a
that
wood fence with the lattice.
The first 3 feet, which is what is allowable, is solid. And then the top, you have that, you'll be able to see through that. So we're talking about, we asked them for 1 foot on the height.
Essentially, what they can do is they could make a solid 3-foot fence and not have to come in front of the zoning board at
That's
all.
correct.
But they're asking for the 4 feet. What they're agreeable to is that the top 1 foot is transparent
Transparent.
enough for you to be able to see it. Which is a determining factor of the board saying, well, we can, or if you're amenable to that, you can grant that variance for the addition because that is going to be transparent. At least the portion that's
No, I understand. It's pretty much the same, just shorter. So it's in whoever's 4 feet tall or higher can see through
Right.
that portion of the fence. I,
3 feet tall. Because the last foot is see-through.
great, sorry, 3 foot or taller for
So
teenagers.
the tiny little people can see through.
But I want to be open and honest about my position, which hasn't changed from last meeting, which was they have a feasible alternative. They don't have to come before us for that. They are asking for us to it's not the same as the other side of the street. The other side of the street composition of that fence is very different. You can see from ground level above onto the street, and one of the things you brought up was protection for kids, etc. There's no gates in front of the driveway, so they can still run around it, and I think it's important for your safety reasons to let people be able to see through the fence just like the other side of the street is. It's a 4-foot fence, but you see more of what's on the other side and they see the road.
No, they don't see the road, Kyle. If you.
We looked at photos of it, they had some hedges
I
there.
respect the. Right.
Guys, one at a time, one at a time, one
Yeah.
at a time.
May I speak? You know, I was.
Can you come up if
really
you want to say
concerned.
something?
Yes, absolutely. I'm kind of old, but I'm tired. By the way, my birthday, 75th birthday next month, so if the board wants to give me an early birthday.
That'd be favoritism.
Yes, it's been a while, but across the street, you have a 4-foot fence. But behind that fence are 20-foot trees. There's no sight at all between the condominium and the road. This fence, which we are proposing, absolutely has nothing to do with visual in terms of people seeing cars or anything like that, because it's out of the way. It's not, doesn't affect the entrance on either side. The safety part, which Kyle addressed, the children could still run around it. Well, I mean, they'd have to actually run, 20 yards this way to go around it. Right now, what we have existing are partial, open, dilapidated hedges with holes in them this wide. If kids are playing in that little lawn that we have and a ball goes out in the street, up the bid, one of them runs out, we don't think that would happen. But we know this would be a good safety measure. It's a beautiful fence. It's going to beautify the territory. We will landscape behind it. If anybody has, I think, Joe, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your last name from here, but I think you saw I think you were on the site when we put the new pool in, which was almost $300,000. We maintain the property beautifully. I invite any of you to come there and take a look at it. And you will see that this fence is going to be a beautiful addition to that property. We're not putting up anything to make it look ugly. We're not putting up anything to hide our property. Excuse me. But those hedges, as you can see, are done. And to landscape the whole 500 feet would cost us 3 times the amount of what the fence would be.
So I know when people come from the community to speak, and you had homeowners who came to speak, there's certain things we can't consider, and then certain things we can. Otherwise, what's the purpose of people coming to speak at all?
Yeah,
They directly dispute that this.
you had one person come.
No, we had all those people online.
No,
We had one person in the audience.
Yeah.
And we had one person online,
That's 2 people.
one of whom was a former president of the board,
No, it was not.
or, okay, well, it was on the record saying it was.
Well,
I
if
think
may
that's, I
say-
believe that's how we identify.
I don't.
That's how we
want to-
identified, so.
I really don't think we should get into this, but I will speak to this because you brought it up. The person you're speaking about,
Mhm.
okay, was former vice president of the board,
Sorry.
and he's been rejected by the community for the last 2 elections. So he has a little bit of an axe to grind. This is not the only thing he complains about. He's complaining about a lot of things.
But
But
it's,
that has nothing to do with the thing. On its merit itself, we're looking to put up a 4-foot fence. After speaking to you guys.
can you show us
last
the
time-
fence on the other side?
Yeah,
Oh.
right.
I also,
We have the fence, but if concern is the visibility, I mean, you see that,
Not my concern. That was your guys' safety concern that you wrote in your application, so I was addressing.
I just want to point out for the board, just because the nature of the application is important to your decision, they're proposing a privacy fence.
Yes,
So across the street isn't necessarily analogous. I mean, yes, they have a slotted fence that you can see through, but they achieve the privacy by the hedges.
Right.
yes,
So
but
I-
character of the neighborhood, much better.
Yeah,
Fence.
but if, again, Kyle, if you look at their submission, this kind of opaque fence is not inconsistent with the larger neighborhood.
I think, so,
So I'm one person, so that we don't go into a hole where we just keep going back and forth. Based on nothing material changing, other than the board possibly recommending that you go to 4 feet, if that's the determination. my vote's already locked because nothing else has changed, and I already made my decision after last time. We held it off for changes or new information. That was their right. My vote's done. I'm one person. So no one needs to convince me. I will justify my reasoning during the 5 factors and we'll go from there.
But I think that it's important that from the last meeting, and this is just my memory serving me halfway right, that we did talk about them reducing it, and if they could bring it down to a reasonable number, you know, to a 4-foot level, but which technically what they did was give us a 3-foot fence with another foot of sight. So I think that, you know, they're trying to compromise, to give us some wiggle room to talk about what we've been asking for and looking at, going through this process. I also want to make it kind of, you know, kind of give everybody the thought that if we talked about that last time, it's kind of hard to go back and say, you know, well, thank you for doing what we asked you to do, but now.
We did not, and I specifically
I
said
didn't
that.
say you.
Yeah. So my vote is where it is because I did
I
not.
did,
make that
okay,
assumption.
so I am just saying that we talked about it, I think it was a discussion, and I think we need to.
We
be
can't
mindful.
tell people to go do something and be like, well, if you do that, we'll approve it. We can't do that. We can make suggestions and say it's still based on our evaluation of the 5 factors and our.
And I did not say we didn't do that either, but I think that those were some of the suggestions.
How hard would it be to go back to the minutes of that meeting and just read them to us?
I don't know if I posted online.
Why does that foot make such a difference? Like, this is 3 foot, such a code, like, it was, within code it's 3 feet, like,
Yes.
why are you?
You don't have to come here at
Okay,
all.
because if you bring up a 3-foot fence will, first of all, aesthetically will not work with the property.
Why?
Because we really like that type.
Because you like it, but why?
No,
does
but
it
it,
work?
no, it doesn't work because you haven't seen the property. If you do, if you come and see the property, you'll see that 3-foot fence, putting a 3-foot fence up around that property is like putting a 6-foot fence up around Sing Sing.
You still have the
It
option to do hedges and things. You just chose not
Yes,
to.
but you
Because
see.
we are comparing,
John.
we're comparing 2 fences, 4 feet across the street and 4 feet from ours. And it has become a discussion of the visibility behind them, where they
No,
chose.
that was your, I was. It
No,
was your
but
application.
you're making there's private, they created the privacy. They had opted for a very aesthetically pleasing fence with the slats and work on the top. So it doesn't look like a full fence, and reducing it by 2 feet, I think is not a substantial asking, especially when the visibility is there. And especially when across the street you have that, and especially when there is a.
I have a question. I think I missed the first meeting where this was discussed. And just for me, why 6 was your target?
That's a good question, and I'll tell you why. Because never having purchased a fence before, that was the standard size. That is the standard size. We subsequently found out we can cut down that fence. So that's not a problem cutting it down, because it is vinyl or whatever.
And also we're replacing an 8-foot hedge.
Right.
The hedge is right.
Even more than 9 foot.
Yeah.
And the hedges, just so you know, the hedges are 45 years old, so they've outlived their time, they're dead, their spaces. It looks like
That's how the
twigs.
decision came about, the hedges be compared to the fence.
The grading of the site, did it go up as it goes towards the building?
No, in fact, it actually.
It goes down? Okay,
It
that's
goes
what I was,
down.
okay.
Yeah. It's not going to be a sterile site, and as I said, I welcome any of you to come, buy your lunch. But,
So,
yeah, no, I'm not you, because I know you got a good appetite. But if you come and see the site, you'll understand that this fence will work beautifully there. It's top of the line. It's going to even go well with what is across the street. It's not going to be a sterile fence. I mean, we have plans, of course, for landscape behind it. Right now, monetarily, you know, I mean, it's not a bottomless pit of cash that we can get from unit owners. But as time goes on, we've always improved that property. And believe me when I tell you, anybody that's been there will tell you, it's maintained well. This man over here works himself to the bone, keeping that place impeccable.
landscaping is great, the pool is beautiful. I don't know what else to say, except that, damn, we really need this fence.
If I can just please say one thing.
Can you step up and
Yeah.
tell us your name?
I'll say, Gene Weglars, I'm the superintendent of the property. I've also lived there for close to 30 years. A 3-foot fence, if we felt in any way, shape, or form that that would be appropriate, serve the purpose, none of us would be here talking about it. I can tell you wholeheartedly, after living there for close to 30 years, that a 3-foot fence on Ogden Road would be nothing more than an incentive for the children that play in that lawn, that stretch of 500 feet, to climb on it, hop over it, fall over it, and then before you know it, they're on Ogden Road. So a 3-foot fence, in my opinion, serves no purpose whatsoever as far as safety. And that's one of my biggest primary concerns. 30 years ago, when I moved in, there were not that many children there. 30 years later, there's younger people with families that have 2 kids, 3 kids, and the bus drops them off and they're all playing out there on that grass. And my heart pounds when I just think about a ball going out through the hole in shrubs. And a 3-foot fence, most of them would climb on it and jump over, and it would be an issue. Guaranteed it would be an issue. It would serve no purpose. Monetarily, from a safety perspective, a privacy perspective, anything. As John said, it would be like taking down the stone wall at Sing Sing and putting up a 6-foot fence. It would serve no purpose. And that's the reason we're here. And we're willing to spend $50,000 to ensure a little bit of safety, a little bit of privacy, and lower the fence to 4 feet. There's 4 feet fence everywhere. I drove by a house today, not far from ours. Dave Fence just put up a 5-foot fence in front of the house.
What I missed?
What's the address? I have it in my phone, and it's not like we're trying to go back and forth, well, we saw this, we saw that. We're just trying to make the place beautiful, safe, a little element of privacy. We're recommending or asking, or pleading for a 4-foot fence to replace 8 to 10-foot shrubs. Across the street has a 4-foot fence. You can't even see the second floor of their buildings. That wouldn't be the case with a 4-foot fence on our property. And I don't think it's unreasonable in any way, shape, or form. And I spoke, I was under the impression that the whole purpose of a variance is to make an exception to a rule, code, a law, if it made sense and it warranted and it would serve a better purpose than what's currently in place. And that's why we're asking for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just circling back, Michael, to your question, I'm looking at just the transcript.
Right.
And just, I'm summarizing, but the board asked the applicant to go back to the drawing board and see if they can present other alternatives for the board to consider. So the board did ask the applicant to go back and look, but to Kyle's point, like, the board will never say, if you make a change, we'll approve your application. They'll never say that, but you did ask the applicant to rethink their proposal and see what they can do to minimize the extent of the area variance request.
That's what I thought it would say, so thank you.
And just another thing to keep in mind while the board is thinking about its decision on this matter, there's a 5 factors, but the prelude to the area variance test is, the board must balance the benefit to the applicant with any detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the community. That's the real balancing test. The factors are what get you there. So just keep that in mind as you consider this application.
Jamie, can I ask a question? Originally you had it down as like a white vinyl fence. Is the fence you're proposing, is that also vinyl material or that's wood?
Oh, no, that's the same type of material. So it's one of the modern heavy vinyl fences.
Because you're taking the 6-foot sections you have now and you're gonna try to.
Yeah,
modify
they
it?
cut down on the bottom 6-foot fences.
So they're gonna be red color like that, Joe?
They're not gonna be the color in the picture, they're gonna be white.
No, they say in that color,
Fence.
but the reason why I was asking is because.
What it's gonna be reduced.
The
to
planning
that.
board approved white vinyl and we got a different,
No, we haven't been with it. We
The
haven't.
planning board hasn't approved anything.
no, but the proposal that was made was white vinyl, wasn't it?
No,
No, this one.
they've always had that one. It says white
It says white
vinyl,
vinyl.
but they won't allow it.
Special on that picture.
I guess my question is, because on that picture, it shows that it has that, like, burgundy rail on the bottom, so is that?
Yeah, that'll
fence-
be
you can
all-
Modify that,
Yeah, what they do is they cut the green part, I guess, and just bring those rails
I
up.
think they bury the posts a little bit more too.
yeah, just sort of thinking the sections, like when usually when you cut vinyl fencing, you kind of.
No, because you have, it goes into.
You can, but it can be
This will
modified.
be better anyway because of the fact that headlights, when they hit this, will be deadened by the fence versus bouncing off of a white fence.
Better looking fence than a white
Yeah.
fence.
Yeah,
It's the best fence they make.
I'm good to go.
me too.
Same.
So may I have a motion to open the public,
To reopen.
reopen the public hearing?
So move Brian.
Seconded by.
If there's no objection, the public hearing is now reopened. Is there anyone? No.
I'm against this, man.
Sorry, your full name and residence.
If there's no one here to speak on this, either online or in person, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close.
Seconded Brian.
Okay, may we go through all of the 5 factors?
All right, I'm just gonna repeat for purposes of the record, you know, as the board very well knows at this point, in determining whether to grant the application for the area variance, the board has to balance the benefit to the applicant with any detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the community. And in doing that, the board must consider the 5 factors. The first factor the board must consider is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance.
I'm going to say, and this is my speech, so, I think they do require some fencing. I think that I think it does help the safety of those who live in the, within the complex itself, the children that are there, the, residents, coming around those corners, or driving in that area. It does provide a level of safety to those who are living there. I also have to say that, you know, they've made the actual fence low enough that you can actually still see the street. And across the street, you know, if you're over 3 foot tall, so allowing for some visual, as you're moving about. So, that would be my answer to that question.
I agree with that.
I agree, and they're bringing the height down to what's across the street, so while this one is opaque, I think it's more in line with the character of the neighborhood.
I'm respectfully abstaining, so I'm not gonna provide comment.
Are you
You
abstaining
have
from a
to.
vote?
Yes,
I don't
But
think
I
that's proper. You've been participating the entire time. I think you should continue to participate.
Right.
It's okay if you have
Just
a
say
difference
what
of
you have to
opinion.
okay. It's hard to have this full body vote on something when not everybody remembers the context of what we're discussing before. I don't feel comfortable voting until we've reviewed, since you weren't there. And since we haven't discussed some of the things I have an issue with, it should be in the minutes or the transcript from last meeting.
But she ready?
She read the final thing we talked about after an hour of discussion, which was the board said, hey, why don't you try shortening your fence and see what happens? But the reason that has nothing to do with where my decision is. My decision comes down to, while they were talking, they said, oh, well, we can't do landscaping like the other side of the street because it'll be too much money. And then there were people who said, well, that's not true. It won't cost that much money. And there were all these other reasons they gave for not wanting to do the thing they were already allowed to do. And none of them made sense to me. It seemed like, well, they want it, so they're just gonna fight for it till they get it. And I don't think that's an appropriate way to handle.
May I address something to you on
It's
that?
not
Well,
really
no,
appropriate for you to jump in.
Oh, I'm
The
sorry.
board's
Okay, I
deliberating.
just wanted to give him an answer on something.
So personally, I'm gonna abstain unless I have a chance to review the transcript to refresh my memory. Because I can't make
It's
an
fine.
informed decision.
You can abstain if you'd like.
Yes.
We'll note that in the resolution if you're abstaining. So is the board okay in the first factor?
Yes.
Okay. So the second factor for the board to consider is whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance.
I think the answer to that would have to be yes, only because they could have asked for, they could have come in with a fence that was actually within code. But and which would have satisfied the issue at hand. But in deference to that, or come up with some other type of landscaping,
Sure, there's other options, but anyone that comes before us is always looking for their most feasible option. Whether that means, you know, work with what the land allows them to do or what their pockets allow them to do.
Right.
Everyone's always looking for the best option,
I mean,
even
there's-
if there's more than one.
I also have to, I think in this case, the feasible option, although we have they talked about, you know, hedges or trees or something of a natural aesthetic, would have actually cost them to, may not have been as feasible as we would like it to be, because again, they have hedges there that have been there for 100 years, which have probably depleted the soil. So, and I'm not saying that that's good or bad, I'm just saying that, you know, it's something that we, you know, you take into consideration, and the fact that they will put some type of greenery up as things move on.
In those cases, we asked for financial proof. They didn't provide it, but we asked another applicant tonight for that same proof. So that's why I can't vote tonight, because we're ignoring things that we ask other people to do to make a decision on this property, and I just don't think it's right.
I disagree with that characterization, Kyle. We typically do not ask for specific financial proof on area variances.
Right.
You ask for alternatives.
They're using it as a condition of their argument, so.
That's one of their many arguments, and if you're abstaining, you really should be participating in this portion of the discussion.
Okay.
The next factor for the board to consider is whether the requested area variance is substantial.
1 foot.
It's 25% more than what they're allowed. Doesn't seem like a lot.
And they were upfront with us too. There's two other things they could have done. They could have proposed a 3-foot fence on top of a 2-foot wall. Or they could have bounded the soil up 2 feet and put a 3-foot fence on it. And they didn't try to do either one of those things. They came straight out and said, look, we want to go from 6 to 4.
Right.
So,
Those are my voice. The next factor is whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
that's a pretty busy thoroughfare cut through for that area. And they've got 2 huge complexes on either side of the road. I think anything you can do to increase safety and have the area safer for vehicles to travel along.
And the aesthetic, I mean, those bushes they have now, they don't look healthy at all.
And while the fences are different, there are 4 feet on both sides of the road, so I think it's fair.
3 feet.
It's the other side's 4 feet.
The other side has the 3 feet, but then they compromised by putting in giant bushes, so they still got their privacy.
I think their fences.
Oh, it is 4 feet?
The fence is 4 feet and the trees are 6 feet.
Sometimes.
They didn't start out that high. I'm sure you probably started out that small.
We all know it's gonna grow.
Oh my God, well, last and certainly not least, the board must consider whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the Board of Appeals, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the variance.
I guess it is self-created, however, it may not, well, I guess they've been here a long time, but it may have not been self-created by them who are currently in these positions. It was from previous board members who made those decisions. So.
I don't know that I agree with that. I mean, the bushes have been there for 20 years.
Oh, 46 years.
46 years. So, I mean, you know, wear and tear. Things have an expiration. They had a solution before, it needs to be replaced.
And the question of how it's replaced, is up to the homeowner.
Okay, those are the factors, so the board must make a decision.
I'm going to say that in, you know, anyone disagrees, but in light of what we've just discussed, it looks like we would grant the 4-foot fence. We have a motion.
Motion to grant the 4-foot fence, for this application.
Seconded, Brian.
Roll call.
Michael Stoll,
Aye.
Olga Montez,
I,
Brian Grano,
Aye.
Kyle Abarizik,
Same.
and Chair Chi.
Aye. Please do not put this fence up until you get a building permit.
Won't need a permit.
Oh.
Well,
It's up
wait,
to the planning board.
it's still to go to planning board.
Oh,
yeah.
yes. Then don't put this fence up until you go to the planning board.
Can I speak now? Thank you. That's my birthday present. Appreciate it.
We'll
Happy
be over for
birthday.
the pool party, don't worry.
Yay, you guys, you're welcome to come anytime,
Right.
honestly, I do. Thank you very much.
have a good night.
Have a good night. Adjourned for tonight is, ZBA, what is that?
2023 Riverwalk.
Yeah.
We can give a brief update on that. Joe, were you on site for the?
No.
No? Okay. So our engineering consultant Keller Sessions was out with the Riverwalk team on site. I believe it was last Monday. For the tests that they were conducting as approved by, I believe, the planning board, excavation and fill. So they're doing their homework. They should be back here, perhaps not next month, but maybe.
Yeah, okay.
This is the one towards the top of Snowden?
Next to, Stevenson's.
Yeah, next is, yeah.
And what's happening with the old lodge used to be, next, as you go down Main Street on the left-hand side. with the
80 Main,
80 Main, yeah.
80 Main, we don't know.
It looks like they had 2 big pieces of machinery there that were working on.
Those are the same pieces that have been there for a while.
Okay. Anything new on Ale Myers Furniture?
Also, no.
Fulton Avenue.
What else?
Next to Valvoline, that's a good question.
Actually, the one, Croton
Somebody
Avenue, we finally, the structural engineers are finally on the same page of the method of correction.
Oh, good.
But they do have to come back to both the, zoning board and the planning board to get approvals, because it's an variance.
Right.
So they will be back in front of you hopefully shortly.
The one that's
Great.
available.
This is 78
Oh, okay.
Croton
I was
Avenue.
thinking
Is that the one that had the sign, shame on us?
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody
remembers that.
The abomination.
I live
on our
further
town.
up Croton, and then there's also the senior living being built, right? So I don't know if maybe.
Oh,
we're
yeah.
talking About that, site.
We could ask about that too. Did they get the permit for the state, for the light at that corner? Isn't that the one with the?
The one across from Queen
Queen.
Anne's, where the nursery used to be.
136, 140, they're still working through the process. I don't know about a permit for a light. I'm not familiar with what that is. But
What they going for, there was a traffic issue?
There was.
No, there's, right now, as part of their, site plan approval, they're supposed to put the power lines on that side underground. So they're working with Con Edison with that, but I don't know where we're going forward with that yet. That has to happen for them to.
And since we're asking that waterfront property,
it was 30 Water Street,
the water. Street.
the village, yeah. So this is just for those following along at home. The village-owned property, which we've been calling 30 Water Street, is the former DPW laydown yard. So it's at along Water Street at the base of Central Avenue. So probably about 3 years ago at this point, maybe more, the village board put out a request for proposals for development of that site for all affordable housing. Wilder Bolter Partners was a successful proposer, and the village has been working with them for the last many years to come through this process. They are anticipating a closing, I believe, in October. So there's a brownfield remediation project that needs to happen on the site before the construction in earnest can begin. But it should move, rather quickly once they get going. So that's gonna be 109 units of all affordable mixed income, rental housing atop a retail space and also a community, use space. There's going to be a parking garage on the other side of the brook for residents, as well as 40, I believe, spaces of municipal parking for folks in the neighborhood. And they're also going to finish the linear park, which the Sing Sing Hill Greenway right now goes from behind the community center and stops at Central Avenue. This project will actually go underneath Central Avenue and come all the way down to Water Street. So now folks will have a seamless connection from downtown directly to the waterfront. So it's probably going to be about a 3-year construction process, but once they get going,
It'll just move along. Yes, that's nice. Now, if they could just do that on State Street, and we won't even go there.
yeah.
So.
You know, on that one, by the way, just to let you know, the permit that they were given back is actually coming up for expiration in the next month or so, so that I don't know what to do going forward with that.
Okay.
Since we're asking about
Let's
these,
go with the
how
water.
they should- 291 Main Street, the Ossining Bank of Savings Building,
You guys are putting me on the spot. Bank for
the Beaux Arts.
Oh, 200 Main Street.
200.
200 Main Street. Right now, we are hopeful, and again, for those following along at home, in 2019, the village applied for and received a sizable grant from New York State Homes and Community Renewal. The Bank for Savings has not been used as a bank or really by anyone for the better part of 40 years. It became property of the village, I think, in the early 2000s. All you might remember that well, Chair Cheatham. And, unfortunately, the building had fallen into disrepair. The village has along the way made some, substantive improvements just to basically keep the building safe. But the grant from HCR was able to help us remediate the entire building. There was asbestos, lead paint, mold. So now the building is in a basically, I don't know what the construction term is, but it's basically in a clean shell condition. So we have put out 2 RFPs for folks who may be interested in developing that parcel. We've gotten some interest, but some of the feedback that we've gotten repeatedly is that there's no parking associated with the building, and that, would, for the uses that, the board has, looked into for that property, be, sort of necessary. We are hopeful, however, that with the construction of the multimodal transportation hub, which is less than a block away, behind the top block of Main Street, as well as the road diet, which will bring, 100+ on-street parking spaces to that section of Route 9, that building will be imminently more saleable as a result. But TBD.
Thank you so much.
So can we tell them that there's some gold bars stuck under the building because it was a bank and they just never,
If only. If only, that would help. Are we?
Okay, so if there's nothing else, can I have a motion to adjourn?
What's
I mean,
adjourn?
yeah, that,
Brian.
thank you.
Seconded, Olga.
If there's no objection, then, we're adjourned and we will see everyone
Next month.
next month.
Next month.
Thank you, Sam. Good night.
Good night,
Thanks,
Sam.
Sam.
Thank you.
Guys.